Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. I am here with Aaran, of course, who you will know from Screenstars, a long-time contributor to the channel. If you haven't, for some reason, seen one of Aaron's videos, please go and check him out. He does very, very similar stuff to me. So chances are, if you like my channel, you enjoy his. And sometimes he even does the same film. I always think it's quite good to, you know, have a bit of a different opinion sometimes, or in a second opinion. So hello, Aaran. How you doing?
Hi, Leo. Very good, thanks. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. In case you are not from the UK, I live at the very south end of England, whilst Aaran lives up north. So we're kind of the opposite ends of the country. And this is actually the first time we've ever actually spoken in a kind of like non-text manner. So yeah, there you go. So it's a first. I did ask Paul if he could come as well, but unfortunately he was busy. So unfortunately it's just the two of us. We have a lot of questions to get through. This was actually questions that I asked for the 8-year anniversary of the Geek Legion of Doom channel, which was on January the 6th. And I've got a whole bunch of questions from a lot of people. So I just want to say a quick thanks to everyone who asked a question. And, you know, you might end up kind of going off the beaten track. This is not, Aaran and I haven't kind of talked too much about this. So we'll kind of see how it goes, really. I was thinking about trying to do this as a live stream, but I've never done it before. And I didn't have time to kind of fiddle around with it to sussed it out. So this is just a pre-recorded one, but this is just me and Aaran talking without any kind of pre-warning or script. Aaran has no idea of the questions. I've kind of compiled them, so this is going to put Aaran on the spot somewhat. Before we get started, Aaran, just tell us, in case anyone is unaware of your channel, just tell us a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, so my channel's called Screenstars, and I've been going since about, well, I consider myself really started uploading content regular in about 2017. And I started off doing mainly just film reviews. The channel has expanded now. I do a lot of gaming stuff as well, PlayStation 4 reviews, things like that, top 10 lists, collection update videos, TV reviews, classic movie reviews, things like that. So it's a combination of everything, which is really why I call the channel Screenstars, because it's all stuff that you would get on screen that's entertainment, really, and it's all content that interests me as well. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Leo's been really supportive of the channel from day one, really. We connected quite early when my channel had probably less than 50 subscribers, I'm guessing.
There's actually a question about how you ended up on here, so we'll come on to that, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, so obviously Aaran's been obviously a big part of the channel, as has Paul. So I want to thank both their guys, and there's been other people as well. But Aaran and Paul have been the ones that have been here for years now, I think, and are a part of this channel. So anyway, we'll get on to the questions. The first one is from Retro Nerd Girl. So thank you for sending this through. And she writes, as someone at my 4th year, can you talk a little bit about how your inspiration to create the channel and how it has grown over the years? So I'll kind of answer, then I'll kind of get Aaron's take on how he kind of does it on his channel as well. So, and kind of how he gets involved in this channel. So this channel, as I say, was about 2013 in early January. And to be honest, the channel was the original conceived as an idea, as something to do for me and a group of friends. This is why it's called Geek Legion. It was never meant to be me and my own. Because me and my friends used to kind of go out a lot. We used to go out drinking and doing all that kind of stuff a hell of a lot. And I think we'd probably fun if we did something else. So the idea was for me and a kind of group of friends, there's a guy called James and a guy called Matt, who to do something together, which wasn't going out drinking, kind of like, you know, causing hell, all that kind of stuff. And we thought, you know, we could do fishing or we could do golf. But we're all kind of a little bit geeky and stuff. So we thought, well, might as well do it kind of a YouTube channel. So we kind of started that. Well, I sort of got the ball rolling on it. And Matt, you would have seen in the early videos, he actually did do some of the videos, some of the kind of the convention videos, a lot of stuff he did. But as it turned out that Matt, not long after I started the channel, his wife got pregnant. So I just didn't see him as much. And then James, when it came down to it, was a bit nervous about being on the front of the camera. So it was kind of, Matt was there for a bit, and then I didn't see him as much because obviously he had a baby. So I kind of already started it. So it ended up just being kind of me. with a kind of a few odd kind of guests here and there. But as I said, I always wanted it to be multiple people covering multiple things. I didn't want it to be just me talking to them. This is why I was kind of very happy when obviously Aaron and Paul and obviously other people, Lisa Loves, Madison Mayhem, among others, have contributed to the channel as well. So what was your inspiration? I think you touched on it before, but we'll just...
Yeah, I've touched on it on a Q&A on my channel before. And essentially I set YouTube up. It was my son at the time wanted to know how to get his own YouTube channel going. My son, it's actually his birthday today, his 15th birthday. And he wanted to set up YouTube to put his stop motions up. So I figured out how to set up a YouTube channel. And that was it for me for probably about 3-4 years. I didn't do anything with it. And then I remember distinctly, it was actually, I went to the cinema to see Batman versus Superman. And it was getting so much hate at the time on social media and everywhere else. And I actually didn't mind the film, even though it had problems. So this review is still on my channel. It's the first review I ever put up. And it's pretty raw when you watch it. And the editing's shocking because I hadn't learned to edit or anything. So my early reviews were all pretty shocking for the editing, but they're all still up there. So I did a review and I wanted to talk about my thoughts about Batman versus Superman. And then it started rolled on from there, really. I put up a review every couple of months, every couple of weeks sort of thing. And then it really took off in 2017 and I was really started getting into it then. So that was my inspiration. But also my inspiration was, and I have mentioned this on my channel, is in 2005, I opened my own retail store in the town where I live in Halifax, West Yorkshire. And it was called Screenstars. And it was a retail store that sold movie memorabilia, DVDs, T-shirts, toys, all that kind of stuff. And it was, it was a life's ambition of mine, being loving movies so much, just to do that. But unfortunately, it just wasn't making money. And my wife was pregnant at the time with my son, and I didn't want to put us in debt by keeping the business open. So I closed it after about 12 months. So my channel, to me, is the spiritual successor of my retail store, if you like. Mm-hmm. So it still lives on in a lot of ways. So that's really my inspiration, and obviously my long love of movies, really. And I've always wanted a platform to be able to express my opinions on films.
Yeah, fair enough. I should mention the name, actually, because you mentioned yours. So Geek Legion of Doom actually was a 50 Cent song called... I can't remember what it was, but it was like the Pimp Legion of Doom. I forget the actual song, but anyway, there was like I think it was just Pimp. I think that was the song PIMP, and they had the Pimp Legion of Doom. So we just tweaked it to the kind of to the Geek Legion of Doom. Retro Nogo also asked about how it's grown over the years. Now, in prep for this, I actually took a screen grab of. I'm going to put a graph up in edit now, and this is basically kind of showing the views over the kind of the lifetime of this channel. I did have a look at some subscribers. The graph was a bit wonky because in 2018 I had like a massive subscriber cull. There was one of those things where YouTube kind of just closes down all the sort of unused channels and things, and so therefore the graph is really pulled out because it's got this great big line that kind of goes down where it took about 700 subscribers off at once. So you can't really see it, but you can see in the graph I'm going to put up in edits the kind of how the views of it increase, and you can see that there's spikes on certain videos, and then you get the highs, and but then they kind of like you just get more consistent, like a slower, consistent kind of growth as well. But as you get bigger, and I'm sure Aaron's kind of you're just under the 5,000 mark, is that right? Yeah,
I'm about 4,500.
Yeah. So as you get bigger, the more you kind of the more impact you might have. So you get kind of like, and I'm sure it's very similar to it'd be interesting to hear. So when you first start, you're just reviewing your section, and like yours, mine was really roaring, kind of like I haven't taken them down, although a lot of people do. But as you get bigger and your audience grows, because to be honest with you, back when I started, there really wasn't a lot of like B-movie channels, if you know. There's quite a few now, to be honest with you, but there wasn't a huge amount when I started. There was like maybe there's one called Caldwell, and you know, there was good, bad flicks. It wasn't a huge amount. There was about 5 or 6, if that, of the reviewed B movies. So I always enjoyed kind of like, you know, the video back in the VHS days and those type of straight to video films. And I would be starved for content on it. So I thought I would make my own. It's kind of how I ended up being like that, because there was like not content for it. And like, for example, I always remember like Tour of Duty was one of my favorite TV shows, and there's no content on it online. So I made my own, you know, I made my own content. And that's kind of like, yeah, but the bigger you get, the more, you know, the film companies and things like distribution companies contact you and say, would you be interested in kind of like reviewing this film or having this interview and stuff like that? And the bigger they are, the more opportunities you have, and the more you kind of network and that. Like, so, and I think as well, the more contact you have with other YouTubers, other people in the audience and stuff like that. So, you know, is that kind of how you're finding it?
Yes, it is. I think early on, you kind of get obsessed about subscribers and things like that, but you learn as you go. It's actually views that are more important, and if you get the views, you're going to get the subscribers. And I mean, there's a channel I have contact with that's a gaming channel, and they've just hit 1,000 subscribers, and I've been helping them over the last couple of months. And my advice really to smaller channels is, you know, don't worry about it. Just do what you enjoy. Put the content up that you enjoy, but put regular content up, and the audience will find you. Eventually, I mean, that feels silly saying it, because 4,500 subscribers is still nothing in YouTube terms. But to me, when I started, 4,500. I think when I first made contact with your channel, I think you was at about 8,500 subscribers, and that seemed like, you know, Chris Stuckman type numbers to me. You know what I mean? So there's possibly some people look at my channel and think, wow, I wish I had 4,500 subscribers. But it's just, I just do it for fun. It's a hobby to me.
Yeah.
Any money that I make from the channel, which isn't a great deal, and I'm sure you're the same, it goes straight back into the channel, because I just buy things to do my box set reveals, you know, at the end of the month, you know, my collection updates and games for the channel to review and things like that. But yeah, it's don't obsess over the growth, is what I say. It'll happen. Is if your content's decent enough, it'll happen. The growth, it just takes time.
I think the other thing as well is to get out there in the community. It's actually one of the reasons why I want, you know, when I asked people, and there's a question later on that will kind of, again, will come onto this. I don't want to sort of answer it too much, but, you know, I always, when we first spoke, I said, I'm happy for you to kind of promote your own channel and that sort of thing. And it's kind of like, I see some people kind of tear other channels down. I think the best way to go through it is to be slag channels off sometimes and go, oh, you don't want to go, you know, but that to me is counterproductive. And if you haven't checked out Retro Nerd Girl, she does a fantastic channel, really, really good deep dives on older movies. So please go and check her out. So we're going to go and move on to the second question, which is Eastwood for Life fan. And I know you are very well aware of Carlos.
Hi, Carlos.
So he writes, and he's got 2 questions. He goes, obviously, you've reviewed many films on the channel. Is there a genre of movie that you don't like to review in much, as why? So I'll answer, and then I'll hand it over to you. I am not a fan of dramas, to be honest with you. When I watch films, I like the escapism. It's why I watch movies. It's why I essentially like, and I'm not saying that these movies aren't worth anyone's time. This is just my personal opinion. When I watch a movie, I want to see things that I don't see in real life, if that makes sense. I want to, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be a fantasy story. It could be set World War II or something like that. But you know, I like to see things that I don't see in kind of like my regular life. It's kind of why I enjoy the cinema and why I enjoy films. So that essentially means dramas. I find, you know, you can watch the news and you kind of, for me at least, I'll find enough drama on that, if I'm completely honest, especially recently. But you know, so to me, I don't find them entertaining. I'm not saying that they're not well made and they don't have a place, and obviously people do like them, but for me, that's my answer to this. How about you?
In relation to me, in regards to what I don't like to watch, there's not really a lot. There's a difference, I think, between what I like to watch and what I like to review. I think in regards to views, comedies don't do particularly well on the channel, but I do like watching them. But I don't review as many comedies as other things on the channel because I know they don't generally get a lot of views. Like you, I do like a good drama, but I wouldn't like to watch too many of them in a week. I can handle, a couple of them a month, and I do watch quite a few dramas with my wife and things like that. Like the Peanut Butter Falcon, was that last year? That was one of my favourite films of last year. It was absolutely brilliant, and that's a drama. There's a drama coming out this year called The Father with Anthony Hopkins, where he plays someone with dementia. I'm really looking forward to that. But other than that, I don't watch too many of them because, like you, I like a bit of escapism, and some too many dramas, and they can be a bit dull and a bit too much like real life, can't they?
We've got one or two reviews on the channel from them, but they're few and far between, to be honest with you. And I a lot of the time I'll get offered to review films. I'm like, nah. Nah.
Yeah.
I'll try to review as many as I can, but there are some things I just thought, oh man, I don't think I can give it a fair review because I just don't like. I'm just not interested. You know what I mean?
I've done quite a few dramas for your channel on the reviews you've sent me. I remember doing one for your channel called Fear, Love and Agoraphobia that was brilliant, and that was a drama about this guy with agoraphobia, and it was interesting to me because I know someone who's got that. So I really found that really good, and I think I've probably done at least a dozen dramas, I think, of the reviews I've done for your channel. So I don't mind them, but too many and they can get a bit dull, certainly.
Absolutely. Right, the second question, actually, you've got three questions. The second question from Carlos is, as an experienced YouTuber now, what do you look for in a channel to subscribe and watch on a regular basis that is in regards to being movie related? So to me, there's two types of movie. Well, there's more than two, but there's kind of reviews. I suppose there's reviews, news, and collections, collection kind of things. So they're the kind of, I suppose, the three main categories of channels. The news ones tend to be the bigger channels. I don't watch any small channels that kind of regurgitate news, to be honest with you. So I like it to come from a somewhat professional source. Because I think there are smaller channels that kind of will see a news story, then just kind of put it out, and it's, I'd rather see it on a more of a journalistic channel, that sort of thing. However, the kind of reviews and collection video ones, collection videos, I prefer to watch European ones purely because that tends to be the kind of the collection, the movies that being from the UK. A lot of American releases, obviously, we just don't get, so I'm not all that worried about it. I am subscribed to a few, but I prefer UK ones, and I have some kind of smaller things that I prefer when people do it. Like one of my pet peeves, I suppose, is when someone kind of like is showing you. I haven't got a film in hand. There you go. They'll show you a thing, and then they'll kind of like read it like this, and it's off screen. And you see the top of someone's head. That's like, no. So there are certain things that will kind of put me off if someone does that. And, I like to be able to see the film that is kind of they're talking about and stuff like that, and a little bit of context about why they picked them up. As far as reviews, I tend to like reviewers that have a similar style to myself. I'm quite analytical in the way I review. And there are some channels that do. I'm not saying that again. This is my personal opinion. Like Jeremy Jahns, he's one of the biggest kind of movie reviewers, but I don't really like his style because for me it's just lots of comedy anecdotes.
I much prefer Chris Stuckman.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Stuckman either. I find him a bit too monotone, but he's a bit more. I'd say he does a better, to me at least. I find him more interesting than Jeremy Jahns. I never feel there's much content with Jeremy Jahns. But I prefer someone like if they're not going to like something, I like someone who can constructively say why it is they don't like it, or they do like it. Whilst I'm not saying there's not places for this, but people who just want to have lots of comedy anecdotes in their reviews. I'm not watching it for comedy. I'm watching it for for information about or an opinion about a film. So that tends to be the kind of the reviews I gravitate to. It tends to be how I tend to do my reviews. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the other styles. It's just what I prefer. How about yourself?
Similar, I guess. I mean, I do watch a lot of gaming content on YouTube, because a big part of my channel now is the gaming, and it's getting me some big views and subscribers over the last year and a half. So it's really taken off. So I like to keep up to date with all the gaming stuff on YouTube. So I watch a lot of stuff there. My favourite reviewer for gaming is Skill Up. He's an Australian reviewer, but he's really, really good. I really like him. His reviews can be like 30, 40 minutes long. He's really, really detailed. In regards to reviewers, similar to you, other than Chris Stuckman, who I've been following for years and was one of the reasons I got into YouTube, because I thought, well, I could do that. I watch a lot of his, but also I watch a lot of smaller channels. Some even smaller, much smaller than myself. If I've done a review of a recent film, I'm interested to know what the people's thoughts are. So sometimes I will find a smaller channel that might have less than 100 subscribers. And if I like the style, I'll subscribe and give them a comment and show some support that way as well. And I do a lot of sport as well. I mean, I like football. So I'll watch like I support Man United. So don't hate me.
You Americans.
Yeah. So don't hate me, anybody that doesn't, but I do. So I watch some of the fan channels to follow that after a game and things like that. But I'm so busy with the channel, and you'll be the same, I'm sure. It's hard to keep up watching the content you want to watch, because most of my days spent either working, watching films to review, or playing a game to review, and it's not an easy balancing act sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if you're a creator, and I work full time as well, and most of my time on YouTube is a lot of creating. Now, I actually tend to, one of the things that I fall down on, I think, is I listen to I listen to stuff in the car. So I put my phone in, and I'll just kind of like let it play while I'm driving, essentially, which means I can't comment, or I don't comment on videos. And I think, do you know what, I should comment more. But a lot of the time, I'll just let it play while I'm driving, and therefore I can't obviously comment. The time I'm home, I've it's finished, or I've kind of listened to a couple of reviews and things like that, or wherever it is that I might be. So that's the one thing I think I should do more out of, is comment more on other people's videos. But a lot of the time it will be because I'm doing something at the same time, and I'm kind of watching that in the back. Even at home, sometimes I'll be like making a thumbnail for my video while I've got someone else's and things like that. So I feel like I don't comment enough on people's videos, and I try to be better at it. But that's one thing, again, if you putting yourself out there, and it's worth doing.
Yeah, letting people know that you're there sometimes is important to them, especially for a smaller channel. But sometimes I don't even find the time to reply. What I do, I always try and reply to all the comments on my channel, but it might not be in a time frame. Some might think, oh, I put that comment in 5 days ago or something like that, and I only just reply to it then, because it's just not easy balancing all your time, is it?
No. It's I don't reply to all the comments. I mean, to be honest with you, in mind, because I've got so many videos on now. I just, sometimes if it's I'll reply to most of them, but not everyone, to be honest with you. And some of them are kind of like, I don't know what I would say. Some of them it's just kind of like, yeah, I agree, thanks, or something. Okay. The last question from Carlos is, what is the most satisfying thing about your channel? And I think what he means is what you get out of it. And he's actually put, obviously, these questions to me, you, and Paul. To be honest with you, especially now, it gives me, obviously, with the whole thing with the COVID, I mean, even before that, it's given me like a hobby, which I find is creative. When I was at college and stuff, I actually did graphic art and design, things like this. So I had a creative side to me when I was kind of younger, and I used to do a lot of drawing and things like this. And you know, one point I was trying to be a comic book artist. It was actually one of my sort of early kind of like career path, so to speak. That's what I wanted to do, and that all kind of never happened, obviously. But I do feel that I find it itches that kind of like, or scratches that creative itch, to be honest. But I feel like it is, you know, obviously not as artistic as art, obviously, but I still feel I'm creating something, you know. And I remember the first time I saw a quote from one of mine on a DVD box. I was like, wow, my words have been immortalized. I feel like I've made it, you know. And it was a great feeling. That single moment, I suppose, was somewhat selfishly maybe, but it was very, very satisfying. But overall, it's just creativeness. It just kind of gives me an outlet to be creative and have, you know, set my opinion whether people like it or not.
Very, very similar to you, Leo, in the sense of, you know, I've got quite a high pressure job, so I've always I need something, if you like, to have that creative outlet for me to let off steam, if you like, and to do the channel is that creative outlet for me. It allows me to have a voice, and because I'm doing what I enjoy, I love watching movies, TV. I love gaming. I've always loved gaming for many, many years. So I know all them things relax me. So to be able to put it on screen and maybe some people to take that seriously and enjoy what I do, it's just a nice, satisfying feeling, really. And I've always wanted, ever since I was young, I used to watch Barry Norman on, you know, a film review. You know, when he used to do and I used to think, what a great job that must be. Oh, that'd be the best job in the world. I've always wanted to be a film reviewer ever since I was young. Years ago, I wanted to do it in, you know, like do written film reviews, and I used to do that kind of thing at school, and that sort of thing. And then YouTube has finally given me that platform to do it, if you like, you know, on a small scale, granted, but it just gives you a lot of satisfaction to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll move on to Mr. Hyde 63. If you had the chance to remake a film that you had watched with any director on a decent budget, and you'd be able to have final say on the movie, what would it be and why? And he goes on to say his would be Fluke, which was the book version of the Matthew Modine.
James Herbert, yeah.
Yeah, I actually quite liked. I've read Fluke and I've watched the film. I actually didn't mind.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's my mum's favourite book, Fluke.
Yeah, but for me, and this is why I have this to hand, it will be The Last Starfighter. And I'm not against remakes, FYI. I know a lot of people will just go, no, I am not against remakes. I've always said, if it's no good, you've still got the original, so what's the harm? But it gives me more content on the kind of the franchise that I love. However, this one, this is one of the first, if not the first movies to use CGI, and it looks terrible.
Yeah, I went to the cinema to see that.
Yeah, I love the film, but the CGI has really kind of is outdated. But I also think, obviously, gaming's evolved since then, talking about kind of gaming. And with this one, it's about a guy who goes on to, you know, he's playing arcade games, and it's actually like a test for to become a starfighter, obviously. But I think with the advancements in gaming, having like a kind of like an online style game, like in the kind of level, pretty much everything nowadays, Minecraft and that sort of thing, it could be translated into that, and there's kind of like an online game, which is obviously the equivalent of that. Now they actually, have you ever seen Turbo Man? Is it Turbo Man?
Yes, you recommended that to me, and I did review it on the channel eventually. Yeah,
that's kind of they actually took that premise a little bit, but that's what I would remake, because I think to me, ideally with the remake, it needs to be able to improve on the original, and I think certainly the technical side of things could be improved upon, and also I think it could be updated to kind of match with how the kind of the gaming world has changed. How about yourself?
It's a really difficult, this one. It really is. I've been asked this one myself before, privately and things like that, and I honestly think it's a really difficult one to quit. The one that always jumps in my head, but I always think it's a film that you shouldn't touch, is Jaws. You know, it's if someone remade that, but you just know it would be terrible.
You know, I think Jaws. I think a remake is I understand what you're saying. It's not necessary, but I think I wouldn't mind if they redid the shark with kind of like decent CGI. You kept the film exactly the same, but the scenes where the shark is kind of coming out of the water and stuff, whether they kind of overlay it with better CGI, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I know some people that wouldn't like it on principle.
Yeah.
But there's actually, I don't know, there's actually a, if you look on YouTube, there's actually, someone's actually done it with Jaws the Revenge. They've made CGI shark decent instead of the kind of the one there. And it looks a lot better. So I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I understand what you mean about the Jaws.
Yeah. Jaws and Dirty Harry has always sprung to mind. I think that's a character that, because of the snowflake society that we have nowadays and this constant pandering that film studios seems to be doing to the sort of snowflake society, I think if someone were brave enough to bring a character like Dirty Harry back and not compromise him in any way, I think that would be something pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is from Superman Jason. What is the best and worst experience you've had on YouTube? I got the worst. It's fairly obvious, to be honest, I think, for most people. And that's going to be like trolls. And I'm fairly thick-skinned, to be honest with you. And a lot of the times, people are quite, I'm quite happy if people, well, I'm not happy, but if people don't like it, fine. And even sometimes when they say, they do say troll in comments. If you can say it in a kind of a funny and a jokey way, I'm not, I don't mind. I'll leave the comment on there. But there have been occasions where people have been like really like. I mean, you see all your figures behind you that you've got, yeah. I remember someone once said to me, "Why have you got toys in the in your unit? Are you a paedophile or something like that?"
Oh my goodness!
And I was just like, "That is like that's going a bit, that was a bit. That was kind of."
I just immediately removed the comment if there's a comment. Because I like my community on the channel to be positive for the most part. If someone leaves a really nasty comment, and it doesn't happen often, I just remove the comment. I don't even reply. I just remove the comment.
I think the worst comment I ever saw was on my channel was actually when Lisa did a review, and I obviously luckily it flagged up as withheld, and it was like because if you don't know Lisa, she's kind of like a goth lady who got black hair and kind of all that, and then someone was going, "I want to goth whore and things like that." I was like, Jesus Christ! And it was just like, why would you sit there and write that? I mean, it's just like I can't understand. I couldn't understand why you would have it. So that is and I'm sure every YouTuber, and that is the thing. I go back to what I said about how I started the channel. And then there's this guy who he just didn't want to be on camera because he just didn't want to deal with things like that. It was a bit of kind of like, I don't want to have people like criticizing me. And that is if you have to be prepared for that. I think every channel, if you get trolled on a channel, every person gets trolled. So don't let it kind of
don't take it personal.
Yeah, don't let it sort of drive you off the channels. I've seen it happen. Everyone gets trolled. You've just got to kind of
shrug it off.
Just get rid of them, basically. Just block them, whatever you want, or ignore them. Have you got anything different than that?
From my experience, the best experience on YouTube, it's kind of like every time you hit a new milestone. So when I got 100 subscribers, I was on top of the world. And then when you hit your 1,000, you're on top of the world. And then 2,000, 3,000. So every time you hit a new milestone or a goal you set yourself, it's a really nice feeling. And the worst moment for me, certainly on YouTube, was when they demonetized me. This was a while ago, and it was just when they changed the rules, when it changed it to you had to have 1,000 subscribers before you could even apply to be monetized. And my channel had been monetized. And then they changed the rules, so they demonetized me, and I went. It really, really annoyed me, and I was close to quitting YouTube. I even put a video up, I think it's still on the channel, where I talked about how much it annoyed me. And I'm not like that at all. I'm a very positive person generally, so that's the worst experience I think of YouTube. They're constantly changing the rules out there. You've got to keep on top of it.
Yeah, that is true. I'd say he hasn't asked the question, but I'd say the other thing is it's not necessarily worse. The most awkward thing is if I've ever given a film a bad review and then someone from the film comments on it, and I'm like, oh Jesus, that is like, oh, I cringe.
I did a review last year for a film called I can't remember. I can't remember. It was a vampire film on a submarine, and it was a comedy horror, and it was terrible.
Yeah, I think I know the one.
Subferratu, it's called.
Yeah.
And the director got in touch with me because I put it on my worst list films of the year, and he commented and he wasn't angry as such, but he said, "Look, I'm trying to get the film, to get an audience. Could you please perhaps take it off your worst films of the year list?" So I did. I said, "Yeah, I'll take it off there." But it made my top 10 worst films of the year, so it wasn't a good film. But yeah, most of the time, some of the directors or whoever will contact me and say, "Thanks for your honesty," because if you're honest on a review and you're not nasty, they will appreciate that. Yeah, the creators of the film.
Yeah, and that's again, I'm going to type. If that's why he's saying if you do have something negative to say, it's saying in a constructive way. I won't say who, but there used to be someone else who used to do reviews for the channel, and I stopped using him because he would like have personal attacks on the sort of the people on the film. And I just thought I like to, even though it's not my profession, I like to have a professional-ish kind of veneer to the channel. But I have got into it with filmmakers. There's a film I reviewed. Should I say the name? Yes, I'm gonna, because this guy annoyed me. And it was called Lord of Tears, but in the UK it was called The Owlman. And I thought it was terrible. It was like really gothic-y, had all the sort of the gothic trappings and all that. And the director had sent out like limited edition screeners to all these kind of YouTubers. And they had all like a limited edition with books and things like that. And of course, they all gave it rave reviews. And I thought, oh, great, I watched this. And it was terrible. And I thought, are they watching the same film? And I know it's subjective, but I was just like, I can't. And a 10 out of 10 to me is like a perfect film. Jaws, for example.
Yes.
Is a perfect film, in my opinion. I don't think I've ever given it a 10 out of 10. But people were giving it like, 10 out of 10. I thought, 10 out of 10 is flawless, and I just thought you can't be. And anyway, so I gave it this review, and I actually got in an argument with him on someone else's channel, but he was getting personally really kind of like quite narky with me. But it is awkward. It's awkward. But a lot of the time, filmmakers and directors, even if you are not giving them a good review, they can be quite courteous and stuff. And I've actually become sort of friendly with one of them, who I didn't give a very good review initially, but we still kind of were friendly. In fact, they've asked a question on this down the bottom, so we'll come on to that. Anyway, now it's your question. Huge congratulations on the 8 years, Leo. Great achievement. My question is, what are your thoughts on the future of movies after the impact of COVID? Great question. And you can answer it as well. So I personally think after COVID, not only, I think things will fundamentally change in our behaviours in all sorts of things. And I think cinema going is not going to go away, but I think it's never going to get to the stages what it was. And I think it's because people are going to be used to seeing their films at home. Because they haven't gone to the cinema, and because people have been kind of locked up, people have invested in things like Netflix, Disney Plus, all this kind of stuff, and they are now used to those services. And I think when their films, the movies, the cinemas properly reopen, I think you won't get the £1 billion dollar movies like you kind of like. Or very often, there might be a few, but the figures that used to be aren't going to go, because I think people have been used to, in the UK they were saying that regular kind of adults won't be vaccinated till September. I don't know if you saw that. That was today.
Yeah.
And thinking, so that's pretty much 2021 written off, isn't it? More or less. Um, so you know, we're probably looking 2 years in a chunk of time at least when, and I think people's fundamental behaviours will change, not just in movies. I think in other things as well. I think nightclubs. I bet you'll see people wearing face masks even after this. So I think cinemas are going to be massively impacted, and they're either going to have to put their prices up to try and kind of get the money back, which is going to put people more off. I think society has changed or will change to a point. How about yourself?
Pretty much, very, very, very similar. I think cinema is going to suffer massively for, like you, I think at least a couple of years. But at the same time, I do think that eventually, my hope is that cinemas will get to some level of normality. And it might take like a massive blockbuster to get audiences back in cinemas. You know, a film that just has to be seen at the cinema, you know, that everyone's going to want to see. And that might start bringing people back in. I mean, I love cinema. Some of my best earliest memories are in cinema. I will always go to the cinema. I really, really love it. And I've got fond memories of taking my son to the cinema and letting him grow up in a cinema. So I think it will be a combination of streaming services and cinema. And maybe it'll be a case of they released at the cinema and then maybe a month later they go to streaming, maybe a little bit less and maybe a shorter lifespan until they get onto Blu-rays and DVDs and things like that.
I think
so they
can
make money back quicker.
I think as well, the other thing I think people may get, they might even technically not be cinemas, is when there's like some type of jump in technology where there's this new, like maybe like a 3D holographic projector which you don't need to wear glass, something like that. When we're in a place in technology where there's this, like, you know, when James Cameron did the 3D with Avatar. That's why it was the #1 film, you know, of all time for a while, because there was this jump in technology and people wanted to see something they had never seen before. And I think it's going to take, I personally think it's going to take something like that to really reignite movie, you know, outside of your home. I mean, that technically might not even be cinema when whatever happens, but that's what I think will probably, you know, but I think it's going to be impacted big time.
It might even be advancements in VR, you know, something like that next in cinema. You know, VR is getting better. I have VR on my PlayStation.
If anything, then I would have thought. You know,
maybe, there's definitely changes ahead, certainly.
So Buckaroobanzai, who is, of course, Paul, who you would have seen if you've seen the interview with James Pax, who was asked a question later on as well. You would have seen him on screen. He asks, do you miss the great days of the video store visiting to rent and hunt down VHS movie goodness? Or do you find the online search and purchase process more enjoyable in this modern day of Blu-ray and DVD releases? I'm actually going to let you answer that one first.
Well, some of my fondest memories of going with my family, my mum and dad and brother and sister into the local video store. It was magical to see all them VHSs, and I've got such fond memories of the first time my dad bought a VHS player and he brought home Star Wars for us to watch on video, and I spent a whole summer watching Kelly's Heroes and the Dirty Dozen on VHS that my dad had bought himself. But the local video shop where I grew up, I used to go in there and the guy used to give me, like, you know, the promotional materials, like the cardboard cutouts of films and things and posters, and, you know, he used to give me all that sort of stuff. You know, when the hype would run out for that film, he'd give me the posters and things like that. I loved going in places like that.
Yeah, I did too. And I had a huge VHS collection. Unfortunately, I sold it before I really started doing anything with the channel. Otherwise, I would have loved to have. To be honest, the problem with VHS is that they're just massively bulky, and there are some people that still do collect VHS, and that includes Paul, because I know he does. But the problem I have with VHS now is that the bulkiness and size makes them are very, very difficult to kind of store, and they degrade. So I know sort of discs degrade as well, but it's a lot slower process, a lot more hardy. But I used to collect all the kind of and I had loads of rare ones, loads of rare ones, and but obviously back then that was kind of pre-internet really as well, so you never really knew what it was. Well, that looks a cool film, I've never even heard of it before, but just because it's got a cool box art, I want to see it, and that's the kind of thing, that I used to love it. And we used to get down to me, and you might have seen Steve and Chris on the channel from time to time, and I've known them since I was a kid, and we used to kind of go out and around looking for kind of VHSs and kind of rare films and rare editions of films and things like that. And I love it. I still do like, and obviously it's more convenient, obviously buying stuff off the internet now. And obviously if it's a film that is harder to get, it's easier to get. I always remember, I always wanted to watch the film. I saw the film Galaxina, which is kind of a science fiction parody film. And I'd seen it on Betamax, like when we first got a Betamax player. And then I really wanted to get it on VHS, but it was so hard to find on VHS. And I really wanted it. And it took me years and years and years. And eventually I found it in Camden Town in London. And, but it was like, it literally took me years to find it. Literally going into every video I could ever find and go, have you got this film you can sell me, or whatever it was. But now it's just like, find.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like the buzz of buying a physical media. Going into CEX even and looking to see what's new in there. Going into HMV and just looking at physical media, going to a car boot sale and rooting through boxes and things, seeing if you can find something really cool to add to your collection. I don't think that can be beat. But there is still a buzz, when you've ordered yourself 2 or 3 things online and the postman drops it through your letterbox. That's a little bit of a buzz as well. It's just not as big a buzz, I don't think, as actually going out and searching and finding it yourself.
So dopamine hits, baby.
Absolutely.
Right, Professional Amateur Hour asks, if you could make your own B movie, what would it be about? And what would you include? Or if you have any have you thought of the idea of a movie, can you tell me the summary? Well, I don't want to say too much. However, we might be in the early stages of making our own film.
That's it.
And I'm not going to say what that is, but this came about through YouTube, and I'll tell you how this came about. So I reviewed a low-budget British horror film some years ago now, and I kind of got into it a little bit with the director or the producer or someone from the film, and they sort of said to me, they messaged, "Oh, you couldn't do any better." And my initial reaction was, "Well, I'm not a filmmaker," but then I thought, "I bet I could." And then it just kind of like, from there it kind of stuck as like, okay, what would I do? And because obviously it would have to be practically a zero budget film. But eventually I thought, combining the resources that I have available to me, and I don't want to say what this is, I come up with an idea. And I even had someone wanting to invest in it. But I said no, because I didn't want to. I thought if I make it, there's no guarantees that I'm going to make it. But I thought if I do it, it's not going to be for money necessarily. It's just going to be doing it so it exists, if that makes sense, and kind of just to see if I can do it. And if it makes money, which I don't expect it will, but low budget kind of horror films and things, they're not going to make a lot of money, but if it made it costs back, I would be happy. But that's not why I'm making it. So I turned this person down who said they would invest in it and offered me a bunch of money to kind of make it, because I thought I don't want to promise people that this is going to make money. I'm not doing, it's kind of like, it's not the reason why I wanted to make it. So maybe I would live to regret that decision, but suffice it to say, I am halfway through writing a script, and the the only thing, well, the COVID is a problem. But outside of that, I need to find some people who are willing to be in it that are willing to do it for no money. So that is the thing. So that particular thing, I'm not going to say what it is. However, I did think of some other ideas. I can't believe this doesn't exist already, but for a B movie, I thought you would have, it would be cool to have a film called Creepypasta, right? And the idea here, right, the movie is called Creepypasta, and it starts off a little bit like Drag Me to Hell, where you have these, you ultimately have like a gypsy's curse, and there's someone who kind of like, you know, pisses off some type of gypsy, and they're buying some sort of like herbs and things in some sort of market, and this gypsy, for whatever reason, curses them. And then with those herbs, they make a spaghetti bolognese, and it makes the pasta come to life, hence creepy pasta. You see? And it's like killer pasta that kind of like wraps around your throat and kind of grows like the blob. And
I would love to see the effects on that with no budget involved.
Yeah, that one is. That's why I was saying that one I am not making, because that one you would need to have a little bit of money in. I've also had an idea about a science fiction film. This is a lot bigger in scale, so I won't go into that. How about yourself, Aaron? You ever thought about trying your hand?
Well, honestly, no. I've never really had that itch that I wanted to scratch in regards to becoming a filmmaker, because I've always had that point of view as I wouldn't know where to start. I'm not talented enough, and I'd make that comment quite a lot on my reviews, you know, that I wouldn't know how to make a film, you know, so which is why I'm always quite constructive in my approach to them. However, if I was going to make a film, I would probably go down the route of something like found footage, because they're so cheap to make, and with the right story, I mean, look at Blair Witch. You know what I mean? How much did it cost to make that? Next to nothing, and look what it did. I think that would probably be the route I would go down, because you could just literally pick up a camcorder and a story to go at and go for it, really. You could film people's real reactions. So that's probably the route I would go down. I mean, and there was that film that was on Shudder. I think it's on Netflix now, called Host. And it's like a Zoom call horror film. That was brilliant. It was so good. So I would probably do something like that, I think, because I'm fond of found footage anyway. So
yes, I know. Awesome. So he also asks, can members of the Legion contribute videos to the channel? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. I am always happy to let people have a punt if they want to have a review. And just like Aaron will attest to, you know, and like I've said earlier on in this video, that the idea of this channel was never meant to be just me. It was always meant to be a kind of a community thing where people you'd have. You mentioned video games. I've always kind of thought, oh, you know, I would have liked to have done a video. I just simply don't play them. But yes, if anyone is ever wanting to kind of like have a go at doing a video, then yes, absolutely. There are certain things that I would ask you to do and not do. Well, I won't go through here, but if you drop me an email, geeklegionadoom@gmail.com, and we can talk about it. And Aaron, there's a question later on which is going to kind of go into this, and I'm going to be asking Aaron about this in a minute. So that one is there for you. All right? How about on your channel, Aaron? Would you? I mean, I don't think you've ever had any guest reviewers in your one. Was that something you'd consider?
Possibly. It's something I've been thinking about recently. You know, and no one's ever asked. And I suppose if someone showed an interest, it possibly. And the reason why I say that as well is I'm now getting sent a lot of screeners as well, and I can't accept them all. It's just that simple. Yeah. Because I don't like to just review screeners, because some of them, as you can attest to, are pretty hard to get through. And it can sell you. Sometimes you need a good movie. Sometimes you need a Big Trouble in Little China, which is what I watched last night. You know, just to cleanse you sometimes from some of the crap you have to watch. So I wouldn't just like to do all the screeners they send me. I kind of pick and choose at the minute. I'm just replying in some interests me. I'll say, yeah, I'll take that screener, which doesn't seem to put them off, because they still keep sending me everything anyway. But yeah, I think if someone did show an interest, I would probably send them one of the screeners that I got sent, just to see what they could do with that. Yeah, possibly. So if anybody's interested, just get in touch with me on my channel, it might be the push I need to give someone a go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, we're going to come on. There's a question that kind of come onto it, but it's kind of like when you're a larger channel, you know, this you have like exactly what happened with myself and Aaron. You know, when I was probably when you said about you were about 50 subscribers or something, I was about 8,000. So I think I asked you. I don't want to kind of go too much into it because someone literally asked this question in a minute, but yeah. So there's another question we'll link into this. So just keep on watching. Right, number 11. So Dylan Morris asks, have you ever thought about giving up your channel? And if so, what was the reason did you end up staying? The simple answer for me is no, I've never thought that. So I've kind of, the reason why I ended up staying is because I've always enjoyed it. I've never really thought, oh, I'll give this up. To be honest with you, not even a little bit. Sometimes it's kind of like, you know, when you get a bit of crap from someone, it's a bit frustrating, and you kind of wish things were maybe different. But I've never thought about giving up. But you mentioned earlier on, so
yes, when I was demonetized, because at that point I'd worked. You worked so hard early on just to get up to 100 subscribers, something like that, and I'd worked so hard to get monetized, to get the channel monetized at that point. And then when they changed the rules, literally about 2 months after I'd got monetized, it really bothered me. But it didn't last long. To be honest, I got quite a lot of support as well from people in comments and stuff saying, please don't give it up and things. So, but no, it's not crossed my mind at all since, and I don't think it ever would. I mean, occasionally it gets a bit much and you burn out a bit, and I will occasionally take a week or 2 weeks break. But even when I do a break, I'll usually put up a couple of videos a week. So I'll usually take a break sometimes if it starts getting a bit too much, especially like when family life starts getting a bit hectic.
If, just hypothetically, what if for some reason your channel was deleted? Would you start again?
If my channel got deleted, would I start again? Now that's... I think I probably would. I think I need that. I need this outlet now, you know, this creative outlet. And I really do enjoy it. But it would be tough if my channel got deleted for some reason. It would be tough to start from scratch again, but I probably would. Yeah,
same. How was your YouTube? This is again from Dylan. Oh, wait, how much time do you dedicate to your channel each typical week? A lot is the answer to that.
Yes, a lot. Yeah, I couldn't put a time on it because, like I say, I do game reviews as well. And game review, like a movie review, you watch a movie typically about an hour and a half, and then you'll put the video together, edit it, and film it. But a game, you know, depending on what type of game it is, I might have to play the game for 20 hours before I can even consider doing a review for it because they're quite long, some games. And other games I can play 5 hours and I know everything I need to know about that game to do a review. But then you've got TV shows that I really struggle to catch up with to review. That's the one I struggle with the most, TV reviews, because that's a big commitment. But yeah, it's a lot of time.
Actually, on the subject of TV shows, that actually, when the TV show Spartacus was on there, I did weekly reviews, and they got a lot of, and this was really before I knew how to edit it and stuff like that. So they're really crap, to be honest. But I got a lot from them, to be honest with you. So that was always a good numbers driver. And I did it. There was a Kevin Bacon series called The Following as well. And I did at least the first season. I reviewed every episode, and again, they were both. I mean, they say the thing is now is that I think the YouTube has grown, where there's so many people that do that now. Yeah. So it's difficult to kind of to really
stand out,
especially with like the Mandalorian or Cobra Kai. Everyone does those. So you know, if you I think to do that now, you have to get a little bit of a more off kilted, and you can't obviously one where it's like a all binged at once, you know, a weekly one which is a little less less well known. I think it'll be a good one, but yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I spent a lot of time, and obviously with COVID, to be quite honest with you, thank God this is something that I do because it kind of keeps me busy. You know, I find myself never really having much time when I'm not doing anything. You know, if I've got free time, then I'll watch a film or I'll review that film or things like that. So I have a lot of time on it. It's kind of my main hobby, really.
Yeah, and I'm lucky in the sense that on an evening, you know, my wife enjoys movies. So what I'll tend to do with a lot of the Blu-rays that I buy for my collection, I'll take them downstairs and we'll choose one of them to watch, or we'll watch something on Netflix or you know, Shudder or something like that. And a lot of the stuff that I review on my channel will be what I've watched on an evening with my wife as well. Yeah. So that works out. So a lot of my classic film reviews will be from something that I've watched recently downstairs with my wife on an evening, which helps.
Dylan also asks, how has YouTube changed starting your channel, and has that been for the better? There's been a lot more people. I think there's so many more creators now, because I think nowadays people see social media as a career option. You know, even though it was 8 years, which doesn't seem all that long ago, there was obviously still people that did this for a career, but I just don't think it was necessarily like kids wouldn't necessarily, I want to be you know, an influencer or whatever. So there's so much more, many more channels than there are. So it's you know, like I said, when I first started, there was very few B movie style channels, and the reason why I ended up kind of doing that was because there was lack of content that I wanted to watch, which was about B movies, and that's why I kind of ended up gravitating towards doing that. Although my channel was, that's when I started, it was kind of about my collection and things like this, but ended up being more about kind of B movies because that's the kind of the content that I wanted to watch, and there wasn't that much. Now, you know, when a kind of a B movie drops, you know, there'll be like 20 different reviewers doing it. So there's so much more now. I think it's to the point where it's somewhat oversaturated. So there's that. I think it's tougher to get into it now and really make much of an impact if on a subject which is very, very popular, like film and things like that. I mean, there's different facets you can have, but there's so many more people doing it now than there used to be. And the other thing is, like, it's something that Aaron alluded to, was the rules with YouTube are very fickle. I would be nervous. I would not ever give up my job to even if this would maybe enough money that I could live on. I would not give up my job, because just like that, they can change the rules and you can be demonetized. Yeah. Well, unless you were earning like millions or something like that, then, which is never going to happen. But you know, if I made enough money that I could live off, I still wouldn't give up my job, because there's no security in this. No. But it's like, yeah, having a bit of money come back is great, and like Aaron alluded to earlier on, I've muted myself. I haven't. It's great to have a bit of money coming, but it's not the reason why I do it. I mean, I got demonetized for 6 months back when I got a strike. Really? I still carried on. I didn't even mention it on the channel. I was just demonetized. But like I said, yeah, it's a bonus. You know, it's my little pocket money.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
And from my perspective, what I've noticed in regards to YouTube is that I think there's a lot more negativity now. There's a lot of channels devoted to bashing movies or TV shows. There's a lot of toxicity towards a lot of media out there. I mean, you know, whether it be, you know, things like Star Wars or Doctor Who or Star Trek, and TV shows like, you know, Batwoman, you know, and they may well be bad, but don't watch them then, you know. But I think there's an audience out there that are just interested in negativity, so which is do it.
You're right on the money there. I think the problem is that like shocking rants and things, and like kind of slagging something up and tearing it down is clickbait. It's why it's the whole thing with the news, isn't it? It's why the news is constantly sort of, they want you to kind of click on their shocking articles because they know what people want a minute. People want to kind of click on it and stuff like that. So unfortunately, you're right. There are, and it's something that I try to avoid, even if it's a negative review or whatever. I never really rant about it. I never use hyperbole. And there are YouTubers out there that I think, to me, it's not my style. I don't want to. I'm not saying that there's not a place for that if people want to watch that, and obviously it is popular. But to me, it's just hyperbole, and it's not constructive. I don't think it tells you anything really. But people just want to watch people just kind of like tear something down, which is a little bit of a shame, really. If I'm honest. Movies and Mania asks, how many T-shirts or shirts do I own?
What? Well, just general.
So that means I either wear the same T-shirt over and over again, or I wear loads, and people think, people they're genuinely interested. I actually don't know. Probably quite a lot, but I'm colorblind, and I'm quite badly colorblind, so I tend to wear black or white purely because I know what I'm wearing then. So I don't tend to wear a huge amount of color. But people keep pointing. I've had people before point out to me, "You only ever wear black or white." And it's because I'm colorblind. So I deliberately then try to wear some colored clothes, but I never really know what I'm wearing. I've had a few fashion faux pas where I've like, Jesus, you shouldn't be wearing that. Oh, Christ. But yeah, that's kind of. So I have quite a lot of T-shirts and shirts, but they tend to be kind of the plain black or white because I know what I'm wearing then. There you go. Right. Where are we? Okay. Horror movie fan. What reviews do you like? So we kind of touched on this. So I like reviews that are constructive. I think this will sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I only mean this as the way I review films is like how I like to consume reviews. So I like a little bit about the plot, just a little just a synopsis. I like people who can, if they don't like it for whatever reason, who can tell if they can say why it is they don't like it. I'm not looking for a review to match mine. I'll give you an example. So there's a reviewer called Grace Randolph who does one called Beyond the Trailer. And I quite often disagree with her reviews, but I think the way she reviews films is very good because she will say exactly, she'll deconstruct it and have a constructive reason why she either likes or doesn't like something. So I actually think her reviews are some of the best because I find her very, if she doesn't like something, she'll kind of give a constructive reason why that is. And kind of like, so that to me works. And I don't like, well, that's kind of what I like. I don't want to go into what I don't like necessarily, but reviews that I like are ones that can give constructive reasons about what doesn't work. And if they do like something, again, the same sort of thing, not just say, oh, it's great. Yeah. Why is it good? Why? What is it about that makes it good? So I like kind of like ones that give, and I've worked in management for decades now. So and it's all about giving instructions to people. So that's kind of when I review people, when I do not review people, but I do coaching and things like that. So it's kind of that same sort of process, really. So I like a review who is, or a review that is constructive. Is the easiest way to describe it. How about yourself?
Similar in a lot of ways, but I also like someone to be natural and just be themselves. I don't like people that are characters, putting on a performance and it's not really them. It's almost like I just want someone to sit down and tell me their thoughts on the film. And I'm not particularly judgmental if it's if they give too much away or I want them to be honest, really, and constructive, like you, and just be themselves. And I think that's good advice for anybody who's doing a channel or is thinking of doing a channel. Just be yourself. It's easier as well, than putting on a performance. You know what I mean? Yeah. I tried that. I mean, you may well have noticed on my channel, I didn't do it this Halloween, but the last 2 or 3 Halloweens before, I did like this character on the channel. And it was terrible. It was really terrible. I had this Halloween mask on with this silly voice. And I thought I could just, be somebody else. and it was funny a couple of times, and then I just thought, it's stupid as hell, I'm not going to bother anymore. You know what I mean?
The next question is what makes a bad review, and again that's somewhat subjective, because I think the reviews that I sometimes don't like aren't necessarily bad. I just don't like the style. And I'll use Jeremy Johns because he's like a huge YouTuber, and I don't get much out of him, but I don't think he's bad. To me, it's more about doing a comedic skit and trying to be, and that's great for what it is, and people obviously like it. But to me, that's not bad. It's just not what I like. If I had to legitimately say what is a bad review, I have seen a lot of reviews that just recycle the plot. They'll just tell you the whole plot. And I've seen some reviews that are like, say, let's say 10 minutes long, and 8 minutes is going to be just telling you the plot. And then it goes, yeah, I liked it. And they're just like, great. So that wasn't a review. You've just a recap of the plot, and then you've just said, yeah, I liked it, or you didn't like it, without any kind of context as to why. That, to me, is a legitimately bad review. Again, I won't go as far as to say this is bad, but it's just not what I don't personally like. And again, we've touched on that's when you get a lot of hyperbole, and people just go, "Oh, this was absolute BS. This was load of old crap. Blah blah blah. This movie's crap." And it's just like, okay, but why? Why is it crap? What doesn't work? You know, it's kind of just a lot, and it works the other way. It's really positive. I think, to me, again, I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad, but it's just, to me, it's not. You're not reviewing it. That's just giving you your opinion if you liked it or not. It's not actually being constructive or breaking it down at all. To me, that isn't actually a review. But that's not necessarily bad. That's just a style choice that I personally don't like. What makes a bad review, Aaron?
For me, what I don't like is like when I see someone doing a bad review on a movie that is getting bad reviews by people, and they just bash it for the sake of bashing it. And sometimes they probably haven't even watched the film, I'm guessing. And I think it's a far braver choice to watch a film that everyone's bashing and actually give an honest, constructive review on it, even if the score is going to be low at the end. It really bothers me when I see people bashing films just for the sake of it because everybody else is, and that's the trend right now. Or a TV show or a game or whatever media it might be. That really, really bothers me. And I think people do it because they think it's going to get them views and hits, and
a lot of politicizing in it as well, I find.
Yeah, and people have got an agenda against a film, you know, when they say it's sexist or it's feminist or it's this, that and the other, and the whitewashing or whatever. And you just think, just review the film, you know, just watch it and give an honest review of it. You know, don't just bash it for the sake of it.
Yeah, I've seen some reviews that are, and you know, coming either from right or left wing, and you know, they'll either praise it or if it, let's say for example, I saw one film called Bit, and it was about a transgender girl who was kind of like, let me remember the plot now, who ends up with a kind of like a group of like female vampires. It's a little bit of Lost Boys, but the point is that the main character was transgender. Now, whether you are agreeing with that or not, where you sit on the political spectrum, okay, I've seen a lot of people just either side. Oh, it's great because it's got a transgender, and you know, I'm maybe you're a transgender person, and you automatically like it because it's got a transgender person in it, and therefore you're kind of like looking over any kind of faults that it may have. Or on the other hand, you might be very against kind of like that kind of thing, and then just completely slag it off because you don't agree with the kind of like the
loose side of the film. It's a film at the end of the day. They lose sight of that, and they just get drawn up in their own agenda sometimes, and it just bothers them.
And again, it's just like that. You're not reviewing it. You're just one way or the other. You're kind of injecting your own political bias into it, and then it doesn't become a review of the film. It just becomes you expressing your opinion on whatever political stance. And I think there are like when you do review films that do have political messages. And I reviewed films that are left-leaning and right-leaning. And, I have my opinions, which I don't really tend to kind of talk about, but I can kind of separate that from whether I think it's a good film or not.
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you think about collecting Blu-rays and stuff? How do you approach collecting your stuff, and how is it different from how other people collect stuff? So I collect just films that I want to watch. I know there's like boutique companies like Arrow, Indicator, stuff like that that are very popular. I will only ever really buy films that I'm either interested in, that I know I'm interested in, or if I haven't seen it, that I think I'm going to be interested in. But I do try, and I don't buy tons, I'm not one of these people who buy like 50 films every month. If I can get like a nice collector's edition of it, I'll get that. I'd rather get slightly less, but if I'd like to have a nice edition of it if there is one available. But I don't buy films just because they're on a particular label. I used to work in marketing as well, and I think it's very obvious that a lot of this stuff is marketing ploys to get people to, like, where they put the numbers on, it's number 58 in the slasher collection, so people feel like they've got to buy all the rest and stuff like that. And people want to do that, then fine, but it's just, you're being marketed to. That's the reason they do it. But for me, I like to buy just films that I like, or things that if it's a blind buy, it's a movie that I think I'm going to like. So there you go. How about yourself, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm not a completionist or anything like that. When it comes to a Blu-ray collection, I will generally only buy films like yourself that I want in my collection. And even then, about a couple of times a year, I'll have a cull and I'll go through and I will get rid of ones that I think, well, I don't want that anymore. I'm not going to watch it again. I will generally only get a film if I will want to watch it at some point. And I'll only really have like one version of it in my collection. I'm not one of these, and I know you like your Marvel collection and things like that, and you'll get a few different versions of steelbooks and things. I just like one version of it in my collection, and then I might upgrade it later on if it comes out in a box set with a few other films or something like that. I like box sets, if I'm honest. I think they're really nice, tidy, and I'm quite a tidy person in that sense. So I will generally try and get box sets if I can of things. But like I say, I'm not a completionist, really. I wouldn't describe myself like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even really collect that many figures. I mean, what you see behind me are stuff that I've bought specifically for the display for my videos, and some of them are even my son's, that he's collected over the years. I'm not one of these that goes out and buys lots of figures and things. It's a bit of a lie that behind me, the figures and things. I only buy them specifically for that display, really.
Yeah, I don't buy a huge amount. I mean, like Steve and Chris, who you would have seen on the channel from time to time, they buy like low. They're into their kind of like Steve's into his hot toys, and like Chris is into his like retro Star Wars stuff and stuff. But I don't have the real. I don't have the. For me, like you mentioned the Marvel stuff, and I remember because I used to be a big fan of the Marvel comics, and I thought I started collecting the Marvel films when it was quite early on. I thought, there's not. If I just collect the Marvel films, get all the nice editions of the Marvel films, there won't be that many because it's just one little franchise. Little did I know.
Oh God, it can consume your life now. There's that many.
There's just so many, and I have cut back, Billy, because I used to buy every type of like limited edition release there was, and now I don't do that. I buy it as kind of like multiple steelbooks sometimes, and even then, not all of them. But it's just it's just a money pit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So the next question is, how did Paul and Aaron get involved? So obviously Paul's not here, but it's going to be pretty much the same story. So I'm going to let you. How did you get involved with this channel?
I said, from my memory anyway, I think I did a review for Kickboxer, one of the Kickboxer films, when they brought Kickboxer back, and the one with Dave Bautista in it. I forget the name of it now. And I reviewed it on my channel, and what I did was I looked around for other channels that had reviewed it, and I noticed your channel had reviewed it, and I commented on it, I think. And so I said, oh, I've reviewed it. Will you check it out? And you did, and it was from that moment on, I think, that we stayed connected. So I commented on, I watched all your videos, I commented on them. You supported my channel and gave me advice and stuff on YouTube and commented. And then it was maybe 6 months later, I think around that time when you said, would you be interested in doing some reviews for the channel? And that was, you know, really big for me. And I thought, yeah, absolutely I would. Yeah. So from memory, that's how I remember getting involved with your channel.
Yeah.
Is that how you recollect?
Yeah, more or less. It's just it's kind of the same thing as Paul. I just kind of like this is what I said. It's like quite often I'll like you said, it's like you do the same thing. If I review a film, the first thing I do is see what other people think about it afterwards, and then I've struck up conversations with obviously yourself and Paul and others as well, and then kind of as you carry on, you still kind of chatting and have a bit, you can strike up a bit of a kind of like a sort of friendship or whatever, and then it just kind of like, yeah, like, would you be interested? And as I've said, I'm always kind of happy to, and I've openly asked people and put things on like the Facebook page of this channel, and is anyone interested in kind of reviewing it and reviewing stuff for the channel, and like I said, I'm always happy for people. If it's a smaller channel, for them to have a space on my channel to then kind of promote their own one that helps their sort of channel grow. And obviously
it definitely helps, because some of my regular subscribers, I notice, comment on your videos. So they've either come from you or vice versa. So it's helpful to all channels, really. And I still really enjoy doing the reviews for your channel. Yeah. I don't think I do just as many now, and I think it's because I've got so much content on my own now.
Yeah.
But I still love it. I still do 2 or 3 a month or something like that. I think, and I think I've done over 100 of them now, and I really enjoy them. And it's a good way of honing your craft as well. Just to get some practice in as well. It was for me early doors when I was doing reviews. I learned a lot from doing the reviews on this channel. Yeah,
and I think it's like, but collaborating, I think it's one great way to network, to grow your own channel if it's something that you obviously want to do. And it helps both parties, to be honest. It's like an everyone wins kind of situation at the end of the day with that. And it's kind of like the other I've seen other channels kind of be very negative towards other channels, but for me it's always like I'd much rather work with a channel than kind of butt heads with them, and
absolutely,
I think it helps both. It means like this, I wouldn't be able to get as many reviews out if it wasn't for obviously yourself and Paul, because I don't have the time. The amount that I put out there is the amount of ones I have time to watch, and there's I just can't. Even now there's films that I end up not watching because I just don't have the time. Okay, so how do you score films ultimately, good or bad? What is your process of rating them? So I score on a 1 to 10 basis. I think you do on your channel as well, don't you?
Yeah, score out of 10.
So to me, I think when you have like a 1 to 5, it's too. There's not enough range there to me. So
not enough room to maneuver there, is
yeah,
there?
10 to me is, and if you're going to have like, it's 2.5, just have 10. Just have 10 if you're doing half marks, and it's basically like, so people, I sometimes get comments saying, "Oh, you reviewed that, you were a bit too kind on that film," or whatever, and when it's not necessarily been a good film. But when you look at a film, right, there's multiple facets that make that film: writing, direction, acting, score, lighting, technical, special effects. And if some of those aspects are done well and some aren't, even if the film overall is a poor film, there are still some aspects that might well work. And I think it's unfair to me. It's unfair to the film, sorry, if I just give it a really bad review, like a low score, if there are some aspects which I think do work well. And that's kind of how I so it's like a cumulative process of all these like working parts in a film. There's sometimes hundreds of people that work on a film, and by me giving it a really bad score, that's just saying that all aspects were bad. And to me, that's not. There are some, don't get me wrong, and there are some that are all fantastic in that, but how I look at the score is I try to be fair among all the different kind of aspects of the film, not just, you know, did I enjoy the film? But if a film was, because there are films that I don't necessarily enjoy, but I still appreciate that they're a well-made film, for example. So I could put my sort of critical hat on, and I think, you know, is the film, the point of the film that it's trying to make? Did it do it well? You know, was it well told? Was it well acted? Was it well scored? Was it all this sort of stuff? And then it kind of, all those factors play into my score. So if you see a score which is higher than maybe you think it should be, it's probably because I think that there are some aspects of the film that were done well, and it's unfair of me to knock it down because maybe the acting was really bad or something like that. But I don't know, the camera work might be off, whatever it might be. There are aspects of the film that, to me, you know, are done well. That's kind of how I think about it. So when I'm looking at a score, I'm trying to, you know, look at all of the end result, but all the factors that make that up as well. How about yourself, Aaron?
Yeah, when I'm scoring a film, generally it's a feeling that I have when I'm watching a film. I kind of get a feeling about what I'm going to score it, or what score it deserves, and I don't overly think it, generally speaking. The only ones that I'm pretty set on are like my classic film reviews, you know. Going in what that's going to come out as a score. But very occasionally I will be reviewing it. I'll be filming a review for a film, and I will change my mind. I mean, before I started filming it, in my head I'm thinking I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. And then I never script my reviews. Occasionally I make the odd note on my phone, but I never script them. I just turn the camera on and talk. And sometimes I'll be talking when I'm filming the review, and by the time I get to the part where I'm rating it, it's dropped from a 7 to a 6 because of how I'm feeling as I'm talking about it.
As you enunciate it, you kind of change your own mind.
Yeah, you think, oh, I've changed my mind a little bit here now. So it generally is speaking, it's a feeling. And occasionally sometimes I do, I think it's fair to say that I've overscored films that I've been to the cinema to see, because it's a different experience and you can get caught up in it. I remember giving Justice League a really good score. I think it was about 8.5 or 9 out of 10. If I was to score that now, I wouldn't give it that. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10 or something. But when you go to the cinema and it's with my son or with my wife or something, it's an outing, it's fun, you know what I mean? And I've always got that sense of euphoria when I've been to the cinema. So I'm usually a bit kinder to films I've been to the cinema to see, because I've enjoyed the experience of going to the cinema.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, it's generally a feeling for me when I'm reviewing and giving scores.
Cool. Have you ever had a YouTube feud?
I know you have. I haven't, no, personally. No, I don't think, nothing springs to mind. I've had a few negative comments, but not from anyone that's pestered me or anything.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call it, it's somewhat of a one-sided feud, to be honest, because I've never said anything in public about this other channel. But you'll notice, if you're watching this video, you'll probably notice that there's already going to be a thumbs down straight away, and probably more than one. I'm not going to mention a channel, but that I did get into a bit of a spat with a channel. I have never ever said anything on this channel about, and I'm still not going to say who it is, but I've never even spoken about it until this very second. But this is a few years ago, and I watched a film and I reviewed it, put my review up. Then, as I've said, the next thing I do is I look for what other people think. And I found a review of this that someone else had done. It was a smaller channel, and they had reviewed the same film. And so I commented it. Oh, great review! I said, oh, you know, whatever it was, you know, I quite liked it or whatever. I think they didn't like it, but I said I quite liked it. Great review. I quite like this one. Anyway, and then what happened was it was that. How can I put this? So someone did a contest video. Someone did a contest, and I did a contest entry. And the thing that the contest was to recommend 5 YouTubers, and I recommended the 5 people who at that point had contributed to the channel. That's basically who I reviewed, and that's why I you know, 'cause I like to try and people who contribute to my channel, I like to try and give back as much as I can to those guys, as you know. And anyway, so I mentioned the 5 people. I can't remember if you were doing it with me then, but that I had contributed. Anyway, and some other this same guy who I left this comment on accused me of something and basically said why weren't they included in the recommendations? And I was like, well, I've basically recommended channels that have contributed to this channel, and I've only ever seen one of your videos, a bit, you know, so I've only just found the channel or whatever it was. Anyway, and there was loads. He just gave me loads of shit and accused me of things. He accused me of, and his channel had been going for less time than 9. He'd considered me like a less smaller audience, and he was like, "Oh, you're ripping me off." And I think he thought he was the only person doing B-movie reviews. This is what I think is what was happening. Because I know I've never seen him comment on anyone else's channel. I've never seen his name appear on anyone else's video ever, apart from that one time he slagged my, you know, he gave me this shit on my one. I've never seen him have one comment about anyone else's review. So I think he kind of lives in this world where he thinks he's the only person that was doing it, realised that I was doing similar kind of reviews to him, accused me of ripping him off. And I said, hang on, mate, I've been doing this longer than you, and why would I rip you off? My channel was like 5 times the size. Not that I was kind of like swinging my dick around. I didn't say that, but that's what I was kind of, you know. And then from there, every single time I put a video up, I got a dislike. And then he would do like these like live streams and literally just slag my channel off, saying I was, you know, just kind of like ripping him off and all of this sort of stuff, and absolutely kind of, you know, tear his chips off and stuff. I never said anything about it to him, and that's kind of it really. So a feud, I've never really confronted him about it, apart from that one time when he first commented saying that why didn't I comment on it, and why didn't I you know, recommend his channel. And the reason I said that was because I've recommended channels who contribute to mine, and you obviously haven't contributed, so that's kind of why I've picked those guys. And that's the only time I've ever actually had any interaction with him. But he, like, well, for years, he just dislikes every single, and he's got like multiple. The funny thing was, he's got like multiple channels where he comments on his own videos with different accounts and things. And like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm just like, whatever. So that was my kind of YouTube feud, if you like. But I don't make a big hoo-ha about it. I've never even mentioned it until now, and this was years ago. I have seen some YouTube, even in the sort of the horror movie community and stuff like that, I've seen people kind of fall out. I don't know if you've ever seen it with people kind of like, oh, this guy said this about me and all this.
Yeah, I know there is some level of toxicity out there, but I kind of avoid any drama really. I just want to, you know, I just want to do what I do, and thankfully my channel has avoided zero drama really. Occasionally I'll get a comment that will spark a debate in my comment section, but I just let them get on with it, you know, and as long as they don't get personal, I don't get involved, you know, just let them get on with it.
Yeah. That's like the one and only time that it's ever got to anything like remotely kind of, like, sometimes you get the old troll comments, but that's kind of like a one and done really. But yeah, I have seen it a few times, and I'm not going to name names. There was another contributor who went off YouTube for a long, and you know who I'm talking about, because they're a big, you know, you have a big interaction with them, and they went off YouTube for a long time, and then they're now back in a kind of a smaller fashion, but they got involved in a bit of a feud and kind of drove them off YouTube, and it's, you know, it's
not worth it.
No, it's not worth it. There's no point. It doesn't help anyone. What popular trends or types of videos on YouTube do you dislike? So shall I tell you? YouTube faith.
Yeah.
That I hate. He's like, oh my God,
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. I was told quite early on that people need to see your face on your thumbnails. So I started doing it, and you'll see some of my thumbnails have still got them on with me going like that and that sort of thing. And I stopped doing it, you know. Yeah, it's a bit.
To be fair, most people do have their. I mean, I tend not. Only some of the. I've replaced some of the earlier thumbnails, and I've just done like a generic template with my face of it, and the rather than having to make up different ones, because some of my early thumbnails are shit. But to me, I know I don't like hyperbole. I don't like people just kind of like overacting, and I know you do it. No, not like that, but you do reaction videos. I'm not a big fan of reaction videos.
Well, I used to do trailer reactions.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't think I mean, I've done a couple for your channel.
Yeah.
You asked me to do, but I haven't done a trailer reaction for on my channel for quite a while now because A, they get demonetized all the time, copyright strikes on them all the time, and B, it's literally like a lottery if you're going to get any views. You know what I mean? Sometimes you'll get quite a few views, and other times you get none. And I didn't like doing them, to be honest, a lot of the time, so I stopped doing the reactions.
I don't necessarily mind. I should maybe explain what I mean. I don't mind people's opinion, like having their opinion on a trailer. There's almost like a mini review of what you think. That I am interested in. It's where, and it tends to be, it's where people massively overreact. Oh my god! Oh, and it's just like that's just not real. People just don't do that. Here's my reaction to when I'm watching something.
Yeah. Occasionally, if I'm watching a good horror film, you'll see me go like that because I'll get a jump scare. But yeah, I really don't like a lot of them YouTube videos where there is people reacting to watching The Exorcist for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and you're watching clips of them watching The Exorcist edited down into 15, 20 minutes. And they're massively overreacting to stuff. You know,
I call them overreaction videos. I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest with you. I just think it's bullshit, and it's just this fake acting, fakeness. But people seem to lap it up. I mean, it's just not for me. It's just not something that I like. I try to, and again, we've kind of touched on it with reviews. I've seen reviews that get loads of likes because they just dogpile on a particular film. Like Wonder Woman, the new Wonder Woman was like the more recent one, wasn't it? And just like people just slagging it off because it's kind of like, oh, it's feminist bullshit or whatever. And
it's not. I don't think it's feminist, but it's not a good film. But I got accused of giving it too good a score. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Which I thought was fair. You know what I mean? There is still quite a lot of fun to be had in that film. But yeah, you're right. There was some really toxic reviews out there for that film, and it really bothers me, that sort of thing.
And I'm not saying people should like it or people shouldn't say their stuff, but it's just people, and you touched on it earlier on, people are just attracted to seeing stuff getting torn down, and it's maybe that's kind of like a sad reflection on society, but it's unfortunately and that's kind of why I always remember, I was really thinking about the Sun newspaper. The Sun newspaper in the UK, that was tabloid newspaper. And they were saying, I remember them saying is that people aren't interested in good news. No. You know, bad news.
Headlines.
Shocking news sells the headlines. Good news, no one's interested in, you know. It doesn't get the clicks. So people just kind of like, unfortunately, tearing stuff down is unfortunately a trend that is probably not going to go away anytime soon. Best B movie that you've watched during this channel. This one I've been prepared for. And it's one you've heard me talk about. The Borderlands, which is also known as Final Prayer in America. I watched this as a blind buy a few years ago now when I did this channel, and I loved it. It is a fantastically TV film, and when I always, if I can, try to get people to watch this. How about you?
I think my favorite film I think that I've reviewed on your channel, B movie wise, was Hell House LLC, probably. you sent me the director's cut to review. Do you remember? Because you reviewed the vanilla version, and you sent me the director's cut. And I thought it was fantastic. Really, really good. In regards to mine, because I don't review as many what you would describe as B movies, I suppose, as you. I suppose maybe this next 12 months, I do a few. I think maybe this next 12 months it will increase because, like I say, I'm getting a lot of screeners. I don't know. I'd have to research that one, I think, to give you a real honest answer in regards to what I've reviewed on my channel. But certainly yours, Hell House LLC, sticks out.
Fair enough. Right, Lace of Heaven asks, I know what I'd like to ask. What is your honest opinion about David Lynch? I know he has quite the spread from Eraserhead to Twin Peaks, but if you wouldn't mind giving you an overview of how he felt about his different films, what you like, and even what you may not like. So you mentioned Twin Peaks. I used to love that show. I remember watching that on TV, and that was like an event. That was like one of those kind of event films that event series. Like nowadays, like you've had a kind of like, you know, I suppose like Mandalorian and things like this. I even like Dune. I know that gets a lot of crap.
I was just about to say that. Dune is definitely my favourite David Lynch film. I'm a big fan of Dune.
Yeah.
But in regards to his other work, and I can only really be honest, is I'm not a big fan, really. I wasn't really a big fan of Twin Peaks. It was a bit too weird for me. And I think, well, I can appreciate he's obviously got a lot of talent. I think his style of films aren't just my style, really. Yeah, Dune is the only one really that really stands out for me for David Lynch.
I think he's got a very kind of unique sort of style that is, you know, when you kind of watch a film, I remember I've said it, I think one or two times before, it's like a David Lynch-esque sort of style film. You know, so I do think that he has a unique. So I think it's there are a few directors where you can just say, oh, it's kind of like that. It's kind of Nolan-esque is another one, you know.
Yeah.
That, you know, you'll point to certain kind of properties that will be intrinsically kind of like their kind of stuff. Sam Raimi, again, is maybe another one. So, I mean, I'm looking at his IMDb now, and to be honest with you, there's a lot here that I haven't seen.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot in his catalogue that I don't. In fact, the only one I think I will have in my film collection will be Dune of David Lynch's.
Did he do Blue Velvet? Was that his?
Yeah, he did Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
And that film, I don't like Blue Velvet. It's way too intense for me. Is that the one with
Dennis Hopper?
Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan's in that as well. Yeah, I find, yeah. But I mean, I'm not one of these that will just melt over a certain director.
No, I'm not.
Everyone if I like his movie, I don't care who's directed it. You know, everyone goes mad over Martin Scorsese. I think he can be quite overrated. I'm not a huge fan of his films, if I'm honest. I can see why people love him. Just like Spielberg, I love Spielberg's work, but he's made some duff ones over the years as well, you know what I mean? And every director, same with Ridley Scott, brilliant director, but he's made some duff ones over the years.
Yeah.
I think for anyone to say that this director is a masterpiece and they've made everything they've ever made is brilliant, I think it's not possible, I don't think. And I think David Lynch is certainly an acquired taste as a director.
I think maybe The Elephant Man was probably, I think he's for me, the most affecting film.
Did David Lynch do Elephant Man?
I think so. I'm fairly sure he did Elephant Man, yeah.
Wow. I didn't realise that. Yeah, that's a film that I used to watch when I was younger, but it's a pretty depressing film, isn't it?
It is a depressing film, but I think it's a very, like, it's one of those films that, you know, that stayed with me because it got an emotional reaction, and it's Carl Pilkington's favourite film.
That's true, yeah, absolutely, yeah, it is, yeah. And if it's Carl Pilkington can't be wrong, so.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's spotty, but I think I appreciate him as a director that has a unique sort of, you know, a stylistic choice, which very few directors have. And I don't have a favourite director. It's one of those questions I often get asked: is what's your favourite director? I don't have one. there's no director that I like all of their stuff, to be honest.
No,
so
I mean, I recently did a top 10 list of my favourite directors, and from memory, I think Spielberg got to number one, and that's only because there's more in his catalogue that I've loved than the other directors, I suppose. You know, I mean, I grew up with Spielberg films, so he invokes that response in me. He takes me back to my childhood, a lot of his films, so that's probably why I put him at number one. But he's made some pretty terrible films over the years as well. And some of them I haven't even watched because it's not a subject matter that interests me. So I'm not going to watch it just because he's directed it.
Yeah. Okay, this next moves us over to our next question. What is the worst movie you've ever seen so far? Now, I don't know if this is the worst thing I've ever seen, but since the channel has been going, and I keep kind of run, and I know what I've reviewed is this one. Aaron, if you ever get a chance to see this film, you should watch it just to kind of like be amazed about how bad this is. So this is the 2013 The Hospital. And the best thing about it, it has a really cool cover.
I'm just going to say that. Looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Right? It is. I gave this 0.5 out of 10.
I love the film festival stamps on it as well to try and give it some authenticity.
It is terrible. And it's about haunted hospital, which also has a serial killer in it. And it is just, the filmmakers basically have put about 7 or 8 rape scenes in there, right? And I think the serial killer is like this great big guy, this massively morbidly obese guy, and he's one of the producers as well. And like the director is like this, you know, are you just kind of like getting girls to kind of get naked? Is this what you're doing? And it's like, if you're going to have a film about a rape, right? Fair enough. I understand you might have to show a rape, but you don't need to keep having them again and again and again, especially when that bloody haunted hospital, you know. And it was just like ridiculously bad. There was, you know how I say we're talking about the rating system. There was no redeeming features. Everything about that movie, the sound, the acting, the special effects, story, was terrible. It needs to be seen to be believed. Funnily enough, this is actually my second copy of it, because I sent it to someone, and because I said, you've got to watch this film, right? And I was thinking, I kind of want it again because it's so bad. I actually kind of want it still, just to have in the collection. And I managed to pick it up for £1. But honestly, it's actually funny enough. It's got that review. It's got about 70,000 views on it.
Really?
The director tried to have me take it down.
I bet it's actually directed a lot of traffic to his film. To be fair, it's probably done him world of good. I mean, you've bought 2 copies, so
it's two. But yeah, honestly, that is unbelievably bad. There's not one thing I can say about the movie in the positive column. How about you?
Well, in regards to the worst film I've ever seen, I would have to say The Human Centipede. Vile, awful film. And it was before I was doing the channel, and it's not a film I'll ever review on the channel because it would mean I would probably have to watch it again to review it, and I will never ever watch that film again. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Leo. It's awful, absolutely terrible film. So that for me, it was a repulsive film, and I just remember how awful it made me feel watching it. I don't even know why I finished watching it. In regards to my channel that I've reviewed, I mean, we see some stinkers every year, you know what I mean? It's our top 10 worst films of the year are usually far different than most other channels because we watch some twaddle, really, don't we? There's films like Killing Hasselhoff that stand out to me. That was a terrible comedy about somebody trying to kill David Hasselhoff. That was about as funny as dysentery. It was really bad. I remember reviewing a film on your channel called Condo, I think, or The Condo, that was really sexist, and you know what I mean. I think it was just made so guys could try and get off with women, sort of thing. It was really sexist, and that I don't remember. I remember quite disliking that one. I think it's got quite a few views on your channel as well. That one, about 10,000 or something. But yeah, we see a lot of bad films. Usually, I can find the good in most of them. But to me, if you're scoring something at 1, 2 out of 10, then there's very little redeeming features about it. And there's usually about 2 or 3 a year that get down that low for me.
I know it reduces. I mean, some of them are bad, and it's kind of down to budget, and although that does have an effect, you know, it's like I've seen some bad films that are bad because they've had low budget, but they've kind of had maybe a good idea in it and things like that. And so I'll still give them props for that. But you know, that one was just terrible. So the next question, again, this one is from the Nameless Goulet, who I think asked the last question. Yeah. What is your favourite so bad it's good movie of all time? And I struggle to think of that one, to be honest. So I'm going to kind of cheat. I don't necessarily think this is of all time. But I will say, if you look at my top 10 list for 2020, my number 2 pick was Big Freaking Rat. And this was a movie that I would suggest that most people would think is crap, but I loved it. I loved it purely because it was so much fun. I had so much fun with it, even though, looking at it, it's probably realistically considered a bad film. But I just enjoyed it. It's got like you should watch it, Aaron. It's got this kind of like one of these like great characters that are a real standout character that I would love to see them kind of like go off into different things. It's like, oh, he doesn't come in until about halfway through, like this exterminator. But it is like this guy played by an actor called Dave Sheridan. And it's brilliant. And I thought it was lovely. But it's not, the rat kind of looks really hokey. It's kind of like our main characters just disappeared in the film. It's kind of like, maybe it's not a good film, but I loved it. I thought it was absolutely, I'm going to be trying to get a media book or something. Maybe one if ever one comes out. For all time, it's a difficult one. I mean, I like things like Battle Beyond the Stars, but I legitimately think that's a good film. So
yeah, that is a really difficult question to answer, because we've all got guilty pleasures, that people would consider a bad movie. I like the Baywatch film with Dwayne Johnson. Thought that was actually quite funny. It spoke to my sense of humor. Yeah. There's a series of film reviews I do on my channel called Misunderstood Movie Reviews, and I tend to focus on films that have failed for some reason, either at the box office or critically, that I actually think are pretty decent. And there's a film in there called Mordecai, and it's a comedy with the Johnny Depp one, that got absolutely lambasted by critics when it came out, and I really like the film. I like the humour in it, and I think it's probably because it's got quite a British sense of humour, because he plays a British character in it. And it feels very old-fashioned in its approach to humour, and it feels like a British sitcom. And it just spoke to my humour, and I really, really liked that. And I think that was probably the first Misunderstood movie review I did. I think I've done about 15 of them now. And but I like doing them. I like to shine the spotlight of films that have failed. I also like the film Grimsby.
Oh, I like that film. Yeah.
That film got absolutely slated when it came out as well, and it's Sacha Baron Cohen, and the humour in it is really, really lowbrow humour, but it's very funny, undeniably so. And that really failed massively. But I
laughed. I saw that at the cinema. I laughed. I had such a big belly laugh at that film.
Yeah, it's so funny. It really is. I can understand why someone would watch that and be repulsed by it, but it spoke to my sense of humour. I quite liked it.
Excellent. The next question is from Matt Star F. Leo, is there any chance you could bring back that sexy guy with grey flecks in his hair and golden syrup-coloured skin? He was so sexy. He is, of course, talking about himself. And yes, Matt, I would love to have you back on the channel, but I haven't seen you for like probably over a year now. So maybe one day we'll do something again. Next is our first celebrity person asking a question. Louisa Warren, who is a director, who I've kind of got to know a little bit through the channel. And she asked a number of questions. First of being, What is the best on-screen death you've seen? The one that always stands out to me, I think it's from the Omen, one of the Omen films, is where there's a plane of glass that kind of like flies off and like takes someone's head off.
Is it Patrick Troughton's head?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
play the priest in it. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's a
no, was that one with the spear? I can't remember now. I don't know. I always remember the scene of the glass that just goes, like the head like spins.
Yeah. For me, I think the most iconic death scene of all time is Quint in Jaws. When he goes in the mouth of the shark and the teeth go down, and then you see the blood split out of the mouth, and he goes under, and that sheer terror, this man who was the hardest man on the planet, basically, Monty Quint, just reduced to basically a terrified man by the end. And bearing in mind as well, Jaws was a PG when it came out. You know, how on earth he got away with that, I will never know, because it's a really brutal death scene, I think. Very scary too. Certainly for me as a child watching it.
Yeah.
So that's the one that always jumps in my head. I think that's iconic, that.
The next question she asks is a little bit of a difficult one, actually, I would say. But what do you think is the best premise of a story that you've seen, i.e. a babysitter alone in the house, or a group go ghost hunting or something like that? So like a setup for a film, I think she means, which is a kind of a very open question, you know, an open idea.
That sort of thing gets me in the mood, because I've mentioned I like found footage, so I like the premise of Grave Encounters. You know, where they go, because I have watched, and me and my wife have been a fan of the TV show Most Haunted for many years. We watched it for such a long time, and we still watch it. So Grave Encounters was just like the perfect premise for me. You know, they're basically doing Most Haunted for real.
Yeah.
That sort of premise, if it's that sort of premise in a movie, going on a ghost hunt and things go sideways, I'm on board with that. You know what I mean? That really sings to me. And if it's done well, like it is in Grave Encounters, then, you know what I mean, I will literally go cold and I'm watching a horror film if it's affecting me like that. And yeah, I'm getting shivers now thinking about Grave Encounters, because I just think that's such a brilliant film, and that premise for me would be number one, I think.
Yeah. It's hard to think of a premise. I mean, for me, I like a movie that has likable characters, like likable and relatable characters. And I think if you can get that in a movie, you're halfway there. It could be a crap monster or whatever, but if you've got characters that you connect with on an emotional level, that to me is where you start. So I think, I mean, the typical one is when you start a horror film, you have like a scare at the beginning to kind of get, you know, it's kind of like set the mood, and then kind of like sort of 20 minutes, half an hour of sort of character work. And I think the setup can be, I don't think it matters to a point what the kind of the if we're going to get to a point in the film where there's some horror going to be taking place, I think it doesn't matter as much as long as it's not just loads of exposition, but in a way where you introduce characters that make them relatable to the audience and likable. I think.
I think also something that works as well is if you've got a character that's typically quite unlikable, and then by the end of the film you ending up rooting for them, they've definitely done something right, and that's not an easy thing to do. No. But I think that's always good when a film can do that as well.
I think you can have unlikable characters, but they've got to be interesting then.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, yeah. Sometimes they'll just go for the cliched approach, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't like that. But yeah, if they feel like a real person, definitely works.
Shall I tell you what my and I've seen this in a number of reviews. I would love to see a film that where people act like they would in real life. This is my, and to be honest with you, it's so rare I can't even think of an example. Where, and I was talking to a director about this, and I was saying, so, you know, why wouldn't you go out there? What, you know, why are these people not just getting out of town, running away, and the minute they see something supernatural, because that's what you would do. And then when you see something like, and I always used to say this, right? When people are scared in films, how do they react? Now look at their reaction compared to, say, a prank video where there's a scare prank. That is how people react when they are scared. Not like it is in the films 99% of the time.
You certainly don't go investigating it, will you?
Yeah. I want to see a film where the reactions are absolutely like they would be. And it might not necessarily be as cinematic or as easy to kind of like write the story around. But that is what I want to see. I want to see genuine, and there's been one or two where I think people have got, they got close and stuff. But one of the things that bothers me is where you see like something paranormal happens, and then the next scene or the next day in the film, it's just don't mention it. You've just seen like a hand come out the well, or something like that. Yeah. Like you'll just get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, you'd ring up your mum or your brother or sister and say, right, can I move in with you for a bit, please? Because I think my house is haunted. But no, they're just like, we'll stay there. Yeah. You just think, well, you wouldn't. You watch films like The Conjuring and things like that. And they usually give the excuse like, well, we have to stay here. It's, we've pumped all this money into it. We don't have a choice. Sod that. I'd be living elsewhere. You wouldn't keep me in that house for all the love in China.
So for me, the setup is likable characters, but in a believable situation. Unless you're talking about like you're making a sci-fi film where it's kind of like, obviously then it's not going to be a believable, but that's fine. But I think, likable characters that act like real human beings, that make decisions that you would make in that situation. So if this situation would happen to me, what would I do? And then kind of write the story around that, not what is convenient for the story. Anyway, what film has shocked you and stayed with you?
For me, that's Human Centipede again. Yeah, it scarred me, that film. It's an awful film. Hostel. I remember that shocking me when I watched that. It's another film. I don't think it's a bad film, but it's a film I wouldn't want to watch again. There's a film
after watching that one.
No, there's another film that I've stayed clear of that's supposed to be quite infamous. That's The Green Inferno. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen that, yeah.
I've avoided that one because it's supposed to be really intense, on similar lines to Hostel, I suppose. It's the same director, isn't it?
Mm.
That would have to be Human Centipede for me again, just for the sheer shock factor of that film. I literally, my jaw was hitting the floor with that one. It was that awful.
I saw Cannibal Apocalypse, I think it was. Cannibal Apocalypse or Cannibal Ferox, I can't remember which one it was. And I saw this when I was a kid, and my granddad had it on Super 8. Right? This is how old it was. And I saw the uncut version of the film where they actually they kill animals on screen. And there was like a giant turtle. And they scooped out, this turtle was alive, they turned it on its back and then just scooped out its guts. And there was like bits moving still, and like, I was horrified. I was horrified that my granddad had shown this. And he died when I was quite young. So I would have been pretty young when I saw this. And I never forgot it.
Another film that affected me badly when I was young and scared and shocked me was An American Werewolf in London, because where I live in Yorkshire, and where I lived at the time was literally next to a moor.
Mm.
You can imagine sneaking and watching that, watching American Werewolf in London, and then literally looking out my window and there's a moor there. Do you know what I mean? It really scared me after death, the beginning of that film, and it still affects me now. It still takes me right back to that fear I had as a child.
Nice. Okay. How many movies have you watched? I have no idea. Thousands.
A lot.
Hundreds of thousands. No idea. I mean, I've got just like 3,000 reviews up, I think.
I was just going to say, look at how many reviews we've reviewed on the channel. You'll have more than me, and I've got a lot.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable how many we've actually done. I don't think I'd even like to hazard a guess.
And then final question from Louise. or Louisa, sorry. She asked, who is your standout favourite character? It's always been, and this is a popular one, Ash from the Evil Dead series. Although I liked him. I didn't really like him in the TV series. I will say that. So he was like by far and away my kind of favourite sort of character, because it was so quotable, so kind of like such a kind of unique character. I've liked him. Evil Dead 2 was the peak for me. And I've liked him gradually. I've liked him slightly less in Army Darkness, but still loads. The TV series, to me, it veered too far away from what his character was. But certainly within the first 3 movies, I loved his character. I will say the character from Big Freaking Rat is also a character, though it's only been in 1 film. So, but he's just as watchable. That's my favourite character. How about you?
I'd probably have to say something like Dirty Harry. Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry. That character is just so uncompromising, brilliantly done. I mean, Clint Eastwood's my favourite actor of all time. He's done so many great characters. A lot of Arnold's characters as well. Dutch in Predator, Terminator, Conan. You know, I was literally obsessed with Arnie when I was young. I had his posters all over my wall and things like that. So probably Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry, and something from Arnold, I would say.
Cool. Grumpy Andrew's House of Horror writes, what low-budget film or films have you seen that has a great premise that you'd like to see to produce a remake if you had the money? For me, and this is a little bit of a bias, it would be Man Thing. And not necessarily a remake, but a readaptation I think is better. So Man Thing is actually a very little-known Marvel Comics character, but there was it's a made-for-TV sci-fi movie, a horror film, that is really not connected to the Marvel series of films. Low budget, it did have practical effects in it, but I think a swamp monster, like a huge sort of shambling swamp monster, is just like nightmare fuel. And I would love to see a better version of this, but still with the real horror elements to it, to be honest, rather than the kind of like the Disney, inevitable Disney version of it. So that would be my ideal one. And I'd like to almost have it as a kind of like that film, but like it is a Marvel character, but you can kind of watch it on its own sort of thing. And if you wanted to kind of, you could think that it exists in the Marvel world if you want, but it's more sort of treated as its kind of own thing. But we're really done with some cool like special effects, some real decent kind of special effects.
Yeah,
I would like that because he's like a somewhat of a tragic character. So he was basically like a guy that was a human and was experimenting on the Captain America serum, and then ended up in an accident and fell in the swamp, but it turned him into that. So and he kind of doesn't really think properly, if you know what I mean. So it's quite tragic. And I used to read the comics, and I was like trying to hope one day he would find, a bit like the Incredible Hulk, he's going to find a cure and all this. So that would be my one.
It's quite a difficult one for me, that I think, because I do comment quite a lot on low budget films that I think it's a sort of film you would love to see remade with a bigger budget, but none of them spring to mind right now. That one I watched fairly recently on the channel is a film called Monsters of Man. I think you've reviewed that one as well.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good production values for the budget that they had, but I could imagine that if they kept the same tone and things like that with better actors and a bigger budget, that would be really interesting. But I also think as well, a lot of Scott Adkins films, I think it's a shame that he's never really broke through into the mainstream, because of some of his films, I think if they were made with bigger budgets and a bigger cast and, better production values, I think he probably would have broken through at some point in his career, Scott Adkins. But he does make a lot of bad choices too.
Yeah, I think with him, he's kind of like, he just says yes to everything, it seems like.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there are some gems in there. I mean, I like his Debt Collector films. Obviously, one he made. What's that prison one? I forget his name.
what you mean?
That's it. That's easily his best.
Yeah.
And that'd be a great one to redo, but I'm not sure they'd be doing a better job with it because it was so good. That
it was very gritty, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the sort of low budget science fiction movies that I've kind of watched, you know, they obviously they just crumble under the weight of not having the kind of the budget. You know, and they could easily be improved upon had they had a bit of a budget, you know, better budget and stuff. I can't think of anything specifically off the top of my head, to be honest, but I think would be massively kind of like it'd be better to remake. But there have been a few kind of like science fiction movies that, you know, I always think if you can't really afford to do it, then just don't, you know, then think of something else.
They'll blow the budget. Some of these B movies with some decent kind of budget will blow most of the budget on hiring Nicolas Cage or Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
And then they've no money left for the effects, which was what happened in Bruce Willis's most recent one, Breach.
Yeah, the other
they probably paid him a fat paycheck, and then they had no money left for the effects, so they just turned the cast into zombies. You know what I mean? It was terrible.
Susanna O'Brien, who was our second celebrity, she directed American Poltergeist, that I have here. I did The Doll with Valeria Bochinova. Susanna asks, what is your favourite movie? So that is easy for me, and Fright Night 2. No, sorry, Fright Night 1. Sorry, talking about Fright Night 2. Fright Night is my favourite film. Fright Night 2 is on my top 10, but the original Fright Night is my favourite film.
I'm just trying to establish that now, because on the channel I do top 10 list, and I've done already a top 10 of my favourite films from the 70s. I've just put one up from the 80s. Then I'm going to do one from the 90s, the noughties and beyond. And I'm taking the top 2 from that list and moving it on to the final, if you like.
So into Aaron's channel to find that out in that case.
Yeah, so eventually I'm hoping to answer that question in the coming months, because It's not an easy answer.
What is your worst movie? I've kind of already said that, but I'll say it again. The Hospital. Yeah. This is worth watching to show what not to do.
Same for me. I've forgotten that. Human Centipede. Yeah.
What is your favourite food? I actually really like French food. Well, I don't have a specific dish, but I went to the south of France for a holiday some years ago, and my God, I fell in love with the food there. It was amazing. I like strong flavours, and it's very much like, you know, garlic and onion and strong cheese. Loved it.
For me, I'm not particularly fussy, but if we're going to go out for a meal, when we're allowed to go out for a meal again, it tends to be Mediterranean or Chinese. I quite like.
Here's a bit of a saucy one. What is your favourite sex scene in the movie?
Oh, wow.
I used to hate sex scenes. I will say my favourite sex scene is the scene from Busty Babes Volume 6. You know that one I'm talking about, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I used to hate. I could never really understand why sex scenes were in like action films and things. I was like, why, you know, skip.
Yeah.
I never used to like them. And to be honest with you, I'm not all that fussed now. If I'm completely honest, I know a lot of people. A lot of people seem to care whether there's, you know, it makes it. Oh, it had some boobs in it, so therefore it's worth watching. It's like, you've got the internet, haven't you, for Christ's sake? And just like,
yeah. I'd probably have to say Roadhouse. Patrick Swayze, that scene with Patrick Swayze, and I forget her name now. Yeah, that's pretty sexy, I would say. You know what I mean? It's fairly tame, I suppose, by some people's standards, but I remember enjoying that one as a kid.
I liked the one. I tell you, the sex scene that I thought was different, and I kind of liked it, was from the film with Super, with the James Gunn film with.
Yeah, I love that film. The one with Ellen Page.
Yeah, Elliot Page, but Ellen Page kind of seduces him. And
it's funny that.
It was. I actually kind of quite liked. I thought it was kind of done with the woman being the sort of the one to kind of like make the moves and stuff, or, you know, and him kind of like resisting. I just thought it was quite good. You know, I quite like that, quite the scene, to be honest. Although I don't think they ever I don't think you actually saw them having sex. I don't think, if I remember right.
No, it was more of a fumble, really, wasn't it, from what I remember.
What is your favourite line from a movie? To be honest with you, I don't know if I could say a particular line. It's probably something to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, isn't it?
I was just thinking that it's either going to be Clint Eastwood or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the line that he comes out with at the end of Predator is pretty iconic. You're one ugly, you know what?
Yeah.
And most of his one-liners from Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood, I just think are iconic. You know, go ahead, make my day. Brilliant.
I've just thought of one which isn't an Arnie one, and this is the line that I have actually said to people, and it is from Weird Science.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where Bill Paxton says, feeling kind of queasy. How about a nice greasy pork sandwich served with dirty because I was thinking that does sound gross, you know.
Yeah.
So whenever I have someone that I know is feeling ill, I'll tell that to them. Yeah. So there you go. Have you ever had an awkward moment with a celebrity?
Yes. Years ago, I used to be a doorman. I used to work on the doors where I live. I used to be a bodybuilder in my youth, many, many years ago. And I don't, believe me, guys, I haven't been for a long, long time. But in my 20s, I was. And I used to work on the doors. I did it for about 4 or 5 years. And the nightclub I worked in, Sylvester McCoy, do you remember Doctor Who?
Yeah.
He came in the nightclub and he was dancing like a maniac on the dance floor. And he had a bottle in his hand, and you weren't allowed to dance on the dance floor with a bottle in your hand. And I had to go and tell him to stop it and to come off the dance floor with his bottle. And I remember walking on there, and the DJ spotted me. And, you know, the spotlights were on me saying, oh, he's about to tell off Doctor Who, you know. So that springs to mind. I mean, I have had...
So you knew who he was there before you went up?
Yeah, we knew it was Sylvester McCoy, yeah, and we knew he was in the building. He wasn't invited or anything, he just turned up. Don't know why, but yeah, and he was, you know, dancing like a maniac on the dance floor. And this was in the 90s, you know.
Yeah.
That one springs to mind.
To be honest with you, I'm not the sort of person who really pays much attention when I'm around. So celebrities could literally walk past me and I would not even know. So I've never had an awkward situation. Well, I suppose the only one I can think of is in real life is I went to a convention and Carolyn Monroe was there, and I didn't really know what to say, to be honest with you. It was kind of because, like, at the time I was like, so should I record? Like, I was like, shall I ask her if she want to do an interview? And I didn't really know what to say. You know, I was like, I felt, because this was relatively early on in the channel's life. I was kind of like, I don't know whether I should sort of say, would you do an interview for the channel? Because the channel was going. And I didn't. I bottled it just because I thought, well, she's probably busy or something. And then she asked me, did I want a hug? And I was like, all right then. It was kind of like, she got up and I think she gave me a hug. And
is that the most awkward hug in the world?
I quite liked her. I won't lie. She's still a lovely lady. But as I kind of said earlier on, it's probably more awkward is having conversations online with people who watch, you know, people who are involved in the film who sometimes are offended. I mean, and I have one of the most awkward ones actually. Now I'm thinking about it. There was, and I forget the film, but there was a film where there was a child actor in it. And it's hardly a celebrity. It was like a B movie. It was kind of like hardly a celebrity. But and the child actor was like really bad. And I didn't like. Luckily in the review, I wasn't like mean. But I had to say, I was like, unfortunately, this child actor just is pretty. You know, unfortunately, it's not a particularly. Maybe you should think about something else as a career path. I think I said. And her mum.
Oh no!
Messaged me on the thing saying, "Can you please take your review down?" I was like, "Well, it's a review. That's kind of what it's for." So I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take it down. But it was like, oh, and it's just like you've got to be, you know, if you're going to go into show business, you've got just like here, and you've got to be prepared to take the criticism. And I wasn't mean, you know, but it was just like, because I knew it was a child actor, so I deliberately was kind of like trying to be as woolly as I can with trying to kind of say it. But Mum was like, well, you know, it's my daughter. I'm like, think of it as a learning experience.
Exactly.
You know? So that was awkward. It was like, oh, so kind of, you know, I understand her mother instincts to do that, but that was a bit awkward. What is your favourite comedy? I've just shown it. Weird Science. Bam, love it. Although I don't think it is a comedy. It's not the funniest film that I've seen. There are films that I think are funnier than this, but it is a comedy, and it's one of my favourite films, so that would technically be true.
Off the top of my head, I would say something like Arthur, the Dudley Moore film. That's right up there on my favourite of all time. The early Eddie Murphy stuff as well, Trading Places, very funny. Yeah. Yeah, Arthur I'd go with probably.
And then Susanna O'Brien asks, who is the sexiest female director? Oh, this one called Susanna O'Brien, I think. Probably the easiest answer there.
I don't know, to be honest, because I don't look at women film directors and think, wow, she's sexy, you know what I mean? I think that would be, without me really putting a bit of research in, I'd struggle to answer that one, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough. And then the last question is our final celeb question. This is from James Pax, who, of course, you would have seen. We interviewed a week or so ago with myself and Paul. And I can't read my own writing. Oh, right, if I can, right. So he asked, how is the girl that you most regretted not meeting? Now, this, I should explain, was a conversation that we had. So I'll just tell you the story. I suppose it's a funny story. So after, you know, we had the interview with James Pax, and we've continued to kind of like converse and chat and stuff. And I know Paul is actually working with him now with something. So we both sort of like still sort of chat to him, and I was talking to him about something. And I ended up, for some reason, telling him this story about my biggest regret. And I said, I'll tell you what this is now, in context of this question. So when I used to work in the game industry a long time ago. And there was this girl who kind of used to work in the same building. I never spoke to her. And she had this really kind of like deep red hair. And I didn't know her name, so I used to call her Red, you know, to myself. You know. I really fancied her, and I never said anything to her. And then 5 or so years later, I was in, you know, there's a shop here called Game. I was working for Game, and I was the manager of the particular branch in Southampton, and she came into the branch and was looking at behind the plate, whatever the PlayStation was at the time. I don't know if I spoke to her. I said, "Oh, you know, I recognise you." And I said, "Yeah, I recognise you as well." And she's like, "Oh, how can I help?" And she's like, "Oh, right." And I had not long split with my past girlfriend, who I was with for like 4 years. So I was single after 4 years. And then she goes, "Oh, my boyfriend, we're splitting up because he's got a job up in Scotland or something. So I'm buying him a present to say goodbye." I go, "Oh, that's very sort of generous of you." So I thought, I'm single. You're going to be single. And I thought we had a little bit of a sort of spark, but I was at work. So I kind of like, my professional sort of conduct was kind of like, no, I can't do anything at work. Anyway, so she went off, and about a month later, I went into a nightclub with, it was how long? This was, I think I was 29. It was my 30th birthday the next day. So this would have been 16 years ago, something like that, right? So 16 or so years ago. And so I walked into this nightclub, and she was in there. She was like straight in as I saw her. She turned around and she saw me and was like, hi. And then she was with this other girl who I kind of knew as well. I thought, oh my God, it's like, I know she's now single. I'm single. We had this kind of little kind of introduction thing. And, you know, it's kind of like faded now, sort of like, and put me in. She's waved to me, like, oh, hi, you right? And I was like, oh my God, it's because I really fancied her. And I was like, play it cool. And I thought, I'll go and get a drink first of all, anyway. So I had a drink, and then one of my mates went up to the DJ. This was relatively early on in the night, so there wasn't a huge amount of people in there. And one of my friends went to the DJ and said, "Oh, it's Leo's 30th birthday tomorrow. Go and make him dance on stage or something." So this DJ, it's Leo, can you come on stage, please? And it's like, oh Christ. So I got on this stage, and I was on my own. And they put on like YMCA, and oh Jesus, and I was like doing this, but then she was at the front going, yeah, I'm doing all this. Like, and I was thinking, bloody hell, this is like real set up for me now. But I'd waited too long because this other random girl who I'd never seen before just came up and started dancing with me. Right? She just turned around and went. I never saw her again.
No.
Yeah, and I was like, no. And it was just like, and I've always regretted not doing it. Like, so, and the point of the story, what I was saying that James was like, always, you know, if you get a chance, you're better off regretting something you've done. Because if I could have misread that and got up to her and she goes, piss off, and that would have been embarrassing for 5 minutes, but I would have got over it. But now I think, God damn it, if only I had sort of spoke to her. That was kind of like my biggest regret. That was kind of why I was sort of saying that. And I since then I did find out what her name was, but it's kind of like it's a bit stalky for me to kind of like do anything about it now. So I never did anything about it. So there you go. So that was that story. And then the final question. This is the final question of everything. James Pax also asked, and if you haven't seen our interview with James Pax, please go and check out. He played Lightning in Big Trouble in Little China, who obviously what you just said you've just watched. So please,
it was really good interview. I really enjoyed that.
He asked, "What is your favourite dessert?" Dessert pudding. I don't eat a lot of desserts, to be honest with you. But I will say that IKEA do a fantastic dime cake. If you ever go into IKEA, they do like a dime cake. It's really, really good. But outside of that, I probably mint chocolate chip ice cream, but I never really eat dessert, if I'm honest. How about yourself?
I would probably have to say I like a good dessert. I'm not going to lie, I've got a sweet tooth. I like cheesecake, really like cheesecake, and I like key lime pie as well. Marks and Spencer's do an absolutely
Orlando.
Yeah, brilliant key lime pie in Marks and Spencer. So I'll usually go and get one of them on a special occasion or something, a key lime pie from there. So those two really, but I'm not that fussy really. If it's a pudding, I'll probably give it a go no matter what it is.
Fair enough. And that is the question. So thank you everyone for obviously asking them, and obviously thanks to Aaron for taking the time. For over 2 hours. So long. Luckily we did do it live, otherwise God knows how long it'd be. But yeah, and thanks obviously for taking the time. And thank you obviously for being part of the channel, and long may it continue. And just
Definitely.
to reiterate a question earlier on, if anyone wants to contribute, they're more than welcome. Just hit me up. Aaron, any final thing you want to say? Plugs for you?
No. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel and for supporting my channel as well. And we'll see you very shortly with more content.
Please go and check out Aaron's channel. If you like my stuff, you will like his as well. I guarantee it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and bye for now.